Lights, speed, cameras, action in 5, 4. Gather around, freaks.
I
What?
was going to say the joke should have been speed to cruise control.
Oh, yeah. Lights, speed to cruise control. Action. I'm leaving all this in. In 5, 4. Gather around, freaks. It's time once again to put on your red diaper. Get your red bandoliers. Tie your extremely long hair into a some sort of 1970s hippie braid. Get a mustache that'll just murder the women. Never shave your chest again. Gather around the internet fire. Gather around the internet radio. And ask yourself the single solitary most important question that you have to ask yourself each and every week. And that is, hey, did you see this one?
I'm coming, brother. Almost there.
Pardos himself.
The time has come for you and any other brave enough to venture into the black void of the unknown, to take a closer look at some of those strange films from an era long past. The ones that look like they were made by folks on a serious space trip. Join us as we unearth head-scratching plots, cringe-worthy effects, and ideas so bizarre you'll be wondering what the f*** they were smoking in the writer's room. This month, Hey Did You See This One invites you to grab your tinfoil hats and buckle up for a wild ride through the wonderfully weird worlds of retro sci-fi in Sci-High Fiction.
Oh God! Oh God! He's teabagging Tim. Oh
It's
no!
like right there down the barrel. My God.
Jeez. Does it go in or
hello.
out?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hey, Did You See This One? The weekly roundtable discussion review reaction podcast where we dive way too deep into a movie that
Into
really
Sean
has
Connery's ass.
yeah,
Right
we
there.
dive right up the fucking barrel.
Again and
on
again
Sean
and again.
Connery's booty hole.
know you?
Just working right on your nose, and you should be so lucky. This is, of course, episode 153, season 3, episode 3. We are talking about Zardoz because it is the final week of Sci-High Theater, where we have to ask, what the hell were they on when they made this? And it's fun too. First of all, welcome back to the show, Tim. Tim,
Thank you very much.
welcome back. Welcome back. In a second, it's been a sec. No, that felt longer than normal. It's been a minute since you were here. You were here for April.
April for Iron Claw for your birthday month.
Jesus Christ! You have your own playlist on YouTube, and you haven't been here since April. That's fucking crazy.
We had a
That's how
lot of
busy you guys
people
have
wanting
been.
to be on for a while, so we had to give Tim a break.
Yeah.
It's true.
You brought me back for
Um,
an easy one though.
Yeah, well, I want to say when we were coming up with the idea for this month, it originally started as September. We wanted to do all Sean Connery,
I remember
but
that.
then Steve came up with the great idea to why don't we have Zardoz as sort of the main event, and then we make a whole month around trippy fucking weird.
Yeah, because Sean
70s.
Connery is kind of like a piece of shit. I mean,
Yeah.
like he's not a great guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Having a whole month dedicated to him seemed a little bit not great.
Yeah, to talk about his
It was a
personal
little-
life would be problematic.
Yeah,
And if we did 4 movies, we would have to eventually. We can with this movie, we can talk more about the subject matter, but.
Yeah.
But it's great because we kind of developed this whole month around this movie. Either way, it's a trippy adventure through space and time, sort of. And this episode is going out only to the people in the vortex. So only the rich, the rich vortex people get to see this. The Brutals do not. The Brutals do not get to see it.
yeah. You have to go back to the wheat fields, you savages.
However, they may invade by the end of the episode and kill all of us.
Also, I
you know,
mean, when it comes down to what a brutal looks like, I think all of us qualify at this point as either brutals or like unofficial breeders or whatever.
Yeah.
You guys would be brutals, and I would be one of those guys on the beach running away, being like, "Please, I have a family."
it'd be fun if we all turned our head and all had braided fucking
I
ponytails.
was just gonna say I'd have to do a little braiding and growing first, as they say.
That's right. Well, thank you for coming back, Tim. That's our show tonight. So we'll see you next week here on Hey, did you see this one? That joke's never gonna get old for me. So you haven't been here in a minute. We have a new segment where the guest actually does a brief synopsis of the film.
Okay.
I think that you're capable of this since you came up with the movie. But before we get to that, Steve's been in the kitchen cooking up a storm. What do you got for us?
Not that I disliked your old one, Jason, because I did like it. It's very funny. It's just a little long, so I decided to make one that's equally as long. And here we go.
Zardoz speaks to you. He demands you synopsize this film. Tell him how, why, who, what occurs in this film.
So are you going to use that for like all the movies from here on?
I think so. I think Zardoz is now going to be a staple of this show. He's going to be a
I think
character.
so.
Yeah.
Zardoz demands that you plug your personal projects.
Well, who am I to turn down Zardoz? Okay, let's take a stab at this. So, Zardoz, the movie, takes place in the 23rd century in a post-apocalyptic Earth where society has been divided between two more or less sets of people: the immortals that dwell in the vortex, or the vortexes, or vortexi, and the brutals that exist outside in the wastelands. And the exterminators are the brutals that hunt down the overpopulations and also tend to the growing of wheat and products to send back to the vortexes to support the immortals. And the immortals live a sustained eternal life while they accumulate and maintain knowledge and continue in a existence that reduces in meaning over time, so they become apathetic and bored and are suffering as a result. And the movie is focused on Sean Connery's character Zed, who finds a way of breaking into one of the vortexes in a secret effort to undermine the authority of the immortals, and discovers deeper plots within. And then it kind of goes on from there. I think that's the best I could do to kind of go from there. Like, because the ending is hard to kind of explain succinctly to make sense.
Even the movie had a tough time doing it.
Yeah, because and don't want to get too far into the film because there's a few other little things to discuss. But other than that, it's a whirlwind of metaphysical symbology and philosophical diatribes explained in a very hippie-ish lens, and at times takes risks and is bold, and other times kind of falls flat on its face, but is unique amongst its crowd of 60s and 70s sci-fi romps. I think that's as good as I can get.
I think that's pretty accurate. What do you think about that, Sean?
Zardos. He's pleased.
Thank you, Master.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. With that, we can pop over to a little bit of a brief history then.
A brief history.
Pinky up.
You're going to notice a trend that happens on this show now. The guest always goes first. There are going to be some guests where I have to explain things, but since you watch the show pretty much every week, you know all this stuff.
Yeah.
So you're gonna hit us with your brief history because you've been talking about Zardos pretty much since I met you.
I think Zardos was the first word I said to you in person.
Zardos, I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Yeah, I just kicked the door in and just shouted it. I growing up with an influence like my father, who was into a wide variety of things, a very eclectic taste in all sorts of media. We would watch things like The Prisoner together with Patrick McGoohan, which is a wild, wild show, Star Trek TOS. And even though my dad would be interested, he'd also be very sincerely honest about it. Like, this is kind of a POS and this is kind of a silly thing, but let's just watch it anyway for fun. And then one day he just brought up that this thing Zardos existed. Because we are also a James Bond family, and we were laughing at how goofy those movies are getting. He said, well, that ain't nothing, because when you get into Zardos territory, that's when you separate the men from the boys. And like after that, I tried to find it. And
you ever see a grown man naked, Billy?
Yeah, ever seen a grown man naked? So it became a bit of a quest, and I didn't see it until my early 20s. So the hype was built, and then when I saw it, I wasn't sure what to think of my life spent up to that point. But at least it was a bit of a self-discovery in that sense. I learned who I was after Zardos. And it did and did not live up to expectations. It certainly was wild, but I was hoping for more. Especially when you see things like the poster that you shared earlier today on social media of Beyond 2001 and Beyond all these other great sci-fi hallmarks, and it's like it's not anywhere beyond any of those. Yeah, exactly. And ambitious ideas, but in execution, it's a whole different. It's a horse of a different color. Another fun Wizard of Oz reference. Anyway, you're a cultured individual.
Ducky, he's here.
So, and then after that, it much like things like Rock and Rule or Karate Dog, it was something I had to share with others. And then eventually there was conversation about movies that you two are wanting to do in the future. And
Karate Dog now.
Karate Dog.
Yeah,
something else.
You brought us Rock and Rule, unfortunately, but now Karate Dog. We got to develop a whole month around your fucking Karate Dog.
I hope you're ready to watch John Voight throw a tricycle at a dog. But anyway,
I am. I want that right now. Actually, let's go watch that movie and come back.
To hell with Zardos.
I saw that on TikTok last week. The man's lost his mind.
He's very crazy. But I mentioned it to you guys, and I would like to think I was the one who planted the seed, and I owe you a very sincere apology for doing so.
No, when you brought up Zardoz, I immediately was like, yes, we have to do Zardoz. We just have to figure out the right way to do Zardoz.
Yes,
And I think, you know what, I have actually really enjoyed this month a lot. I was kind of dreading it leading up to it. I was like, oh man, why the fuck did we decide to do this dry
All these boring
19s, like these
70s.
crispy, the paint's flaking off these films? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Lead paint. It's lead paint. We all have cancer now.
yeah.
But I really enjoyed every single one of the movies we've done, and even more so the discussion about them. So, I'm, you know, we haven't even started yet, but I think we're gonna have a good talk. I think it's gonna be a good talk, guys. I'm sorry. Are you done with your brief history?
That's my brief history ends when I brought it to your attention.
Right, and that's when I was like, I've seen Zardoz, and I was shocked, and I really think it would make a good thing to talk about. But I didn't watch it again. I kind of wanted to in preparation, but I'm glad I didn't, because I watched it today in a bit of a frenzy. But I kind of like put everything aside, and I'm like, I'm gonna just focus on this, and I'm gonna make sure that nothing else distracts me. And I put headphones on, and I focused, and I got through the whole thing. And it is a movie that doesn't really, it kind of demands your attention at all times, because even if you miss one mumble or one sort of spoken phrase, an entire stretch of the lore in this movie is gone, and you're going to be a little bit confused. But if you pay attention to every single thing they say, you'll get it. The world makes complete sense. But the first time I watched this, I've been aware of this movie forever, in some capacity, not knowing that I was aware of it.
Yeah,
you know, there's references
it has
to
some
it everywhere.
infamy,
Yeah, it has iconography that has been homaged or satirized or made fun of, or, you know, completely parodied everywhere. And you know, even up until things as recent as like later seasons of Rick and Morty and stuff, that, you know, like Zardoz exists in Rick and Morty in a different capacity, but it's there. And so I also had a dog named Star Fox when I was a kid, and later my friend, potential guest of the show, his name's Stiver, he would say Zardoz. He would call my dog Zardoz. And I'm like, what the fuck is Zardoz? Zardoz.
That tracks, actually.
Yeah. And then when I watched Zardoz, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I understand the joke now, and it's much funnier. I just thought that you were pronouncing my dog's name funny. But yeah, the first time I watched this was in the pandemic, even though like I knew the red bikini that he wears. I knew the overall look of him, and I knew a lot of the other things from this movie. Watching it, I was like, oh, it's like, you know, you're connecting dots that you didn't even know existed. Like the dots weren't even there, kind of thing. And I watched it with my partner, and we were both kind of like, what the fuck is this? And we were admittedly kind of talking and shitting on it while watching it. So I did miss a lot of those little, like, tiny little bits of detail that are given out, because we're also asking, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why is this happening? And while we're asking, why is this happening, they're revealing information that is important for you to understand why it's happening. And then, you know, I didn't watch it again, but I did have to scrub through it to find clips for the show. But I kind of like wanted to go in as fresh as I could, considering it hasn't been that long since I watched it. But, you know, admittedly, the COVID times watching movies they didn't stick in my brain. I was either drunk the whole time or like weirdly overslept or underslept. And I was just like, I didn't know what was going on. Yeah. But Zardoz was it was a fun watch the first time, but it was an interesting and I think important watch the second time. I'm like, this is the kind of movie they definitely teach in like high science fiction classes, and, you know,
and film studies for that matter, for just the technical aspects too.
Yeah, I'm surprised because I took film, and like they never brought up Zardoz, and I'm like, why didn't they bring this up? It seems like an important movie. Anyway, yeah, so that's my my brief history.
So that I'll take it one step further. I've never seen it, but we used to make fun of this in like high school, but I didn't know like what it was from. Yeah, that's right. I added that. You're
Well,
welcome.
I mean, that'll be handy later when we talk about the boner lecture that they have.
Yeah, the penis is evil. So
What makes it go from this to this?
Yeah. And also, I was like, that's a pretty big dick. they made that dick big.
But what I'll say is, I literally just watched it this week. I was captivated by it, and it was sort of bookended by also watching a couple other like weird bad movies. Like I watched Silent Hill Revelation this week, and I watched fucking
another very important film to film history, Silent Hill 2 Revelation.
I watched Hellraiser Part 5 Inferno. I watched Lethal Weapon 4 all this week, and
all
and
essential chapters into those series.
Right, the fifth edition of all.
Yeah,
three
I
of
think
those
they
things,
just
a lot of
inducted Hellraiser 5 Inferno into the Library of Congress.
It's in the Library of Congress. It's in the Criterion Collection now.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like holding up the bookshelf and from underneath. Okay.
That's what I mean. They did some door stops.
Yeah,
and
they got a stack of DVDs of
those
Hellraiser
interviews?
5 Inferno DVDs.
You know those interviews where they go to that little Criterion Collection room. You see it on social media. Yeah, they hold the door open with Hellraiser 5. But my point is this was sort of a diamond in the rough of all that, and I was expecting it to be just like another stupid bad movie that I just was cramming into my head just because I want to make up for lost time in a lot of ways. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I do wish it does fall into that category that I talk about sometimes in this show, I had a complete misconception about the movie. I thought it was a goofy, I thought Sean Connery's going to like chewing up the scenery the whole time. I thought it was going to be more of a Barbarella, but it's closer to the Rollerball movie we did last week, where the themes and the message are actually very serious. It's a very it plays well in our current day. There's some fun to be had. I'm going to talk about how I can relate it to a couple of video games like I do, but at the end of the day, it's very like it very much shines a light on how the elite sort of look at the peasants, if you will. And there's a lot to be discussed through that. So I if all you know about the movie is this, then you won't know the social commentary that's being said through all this. We're gonna find out real fast if YouTube likes that sound clip or not. It may never come back.
Is that a real song, or is that like an AI generated Boner Alert song?
No, that's it's an SNL skit with that's Rihanna singing about Shirani, played by Adam Sandler.
I'm not really great at pop culture.
That's why I'm here. That's me. I'm the pop culture video games guy, and you're the shut up, Jason. There's serious things to be discussed guy. That's why it's a great show.
All right, Jason, shut
Tell
up.
your
There's serious
friends.
things to be discussed. All right.
There's one in every comedy duo.
Insane in the Membrane. Wasn't one of them Boner Alert? Didn't I make a banner
literally.
that says Boner Alert? Yeah. Boner Alert.
Oh God, yeah. And that's going to be our show tonight. We'll see you next week when our guest is The Rock. We'll see you next time.
Right, but we have to start talking about
Zardoz.
Yes. Okay, let's do a little bit of director talk because I learned something about this director.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed. Action!
Do you know what this cocksucker made 2 years before Zardoz?
Deliverance.
Deliverance. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I called him cocksucker. Do you know what this dickhead? Listen, Deliverance, I accidentally saw that scene on Showcase as a kid,
Mhm.
and I think that might be part of my mind prison with like shocking stuff. I saw
Yeah.
that at like 10 or 11 years old, and I didn't know what I was looking at until I did. You know, one of those moments where it's like, what the fuck? Squeal like
Yeah.
a pig. And it broke my brain a little bit. And I've never, that's one movie that it's not scary in a horror traditional way.
Mhm.
I only know that they go to like Appalachia, they take a canoe ride, they get lost, and then it turns into like a hillbilly horror thing based off
Mhm.
of that scene. And I don't think I'll ever be able to go watch that. I don't think it's one of those things where it just be you go on long enough and it's not scary. Like horror kind of gets unscary the longer away from the release of the film you get. I
Mhm.
think that a scene like that, no matter when the film was made, is just too fucking much. And I don't think I'll ever be able to watch Deliverance.
Mhm.
He's also
Um,
responsible for kind of like destroying the Exorcist franchise in a huge way.
Yes.
Because, uh,
Yeah.
obviously, the first Exorcist is obviously like a masterpiece in a lot of people's minds. I enjoy
Mhm.
it quite a bit. It's definitely scary as fuck to me
Mhm.
still. I don't know. But The Exorcist 3, I also really enjoy, but people don't.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
it really
general
is.
consensus, right? One and
Yeah.
three are one is amazing, three is fine,
the
and two is
point-
just like
the
Two
point that
is-
I'm trying to make is that 2 fucked it up so badly that people still think that 3 is bad, even though 3 is good and it's been out for 40 fucking years. People are like,
Oh,
I never made it past the second one.
And 3 like completely ignores 2, which is a very smart move. But the director John Borman, who is still alive, 91 years old, which is crazy. Like leading up to Deliverance wasn't like too many things outside of, I think 1968 he made a war movie, and he did have some level of personal insertion into that because he was a part of the British Army during the Korean War, and he does have a lot of because he was accused of influencing soldiers of mutinizing and leaving the army. So he has some anti-war
So
opinions.
he's a hero, is what you're saying. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't throw that word around. There's other words that he decides to throw around, and Czar does, that's for sure. But so like he was kind of slowly building up his reputation after his time in journalism into directing for things for the BBC, and I think it was Lee Marvin, the old cowboy actor, that got him a bit of an in Hollywood, and then did Deliverance, and that was an unexpected hit at the time, and so it offered him a lot of clout after doing that, and like Deliverance is like it is one of those movies that is kind of worth, in this day and age especially, a bit of a heads up kind of thing for people who know nothing about it. But there's no need to get into that movie too much, but it is like a movie that is extremely unsettling, and it's meant to be unsettling. And it could be argued that it does it in a thoughtful and artful sense, but and it's a slow burn kind of movie. And there's this one scene in particular that like goes like way over the top for the design of shock value. Yeah. And in that movie, there is also a bit of a sociological examination of people from the city going into more or less the wild and being disconnected from society and being left vulnerable as a result, and the kind of people they end up becoming and the things they get exposed to as a result. So getting past that, he has all this success, and people like Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight are also getting like accolades after that movie. And so he was approached offered to do Lord of the Rings. That they were saying, let's do a Lord of the Rings movie.
I read about that it was like he got that was being talked about, and then Zardoz came up and he chose Zardoz.
Well, it because he wrote Zardoz, so there actually is a connection between Lord of the Rings and Zardoz of all things.
Yeah.
And so Tolkien actually gave his a thumbs up to Borman being the director. He thought he was capable of visually capturing at that time Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did put together a rough script, and when he proposed the screenplay, everyone said this is going to be way too expensive. There's no way we're going to ever be able to capture this scale.
I think they were with like United Artists or something, and they were like, "Nope, like we cannot afford to do what you want to do."
You want how many matte paintings?
Yeah.
we don't have the gross domestic product of New Zealand yet to do
Wait,
this.
you want us to dig to the middle of the earth? No, that's just set in Middle Earth.
Oh.
I will say he did make Excalibur from the 80s, which is a movie that now that I'm seeing it, I vaguely remember.
Excalibur's
like
fantastic.
a Knights of the Round Table kind of a thing, which we do another fantasy month. I'd like to.
I should say that my backhanded comments about The Exorcist 2. I'm not saying he's a bad director. I'm just saying that he fucked up the Exorcist franchise.
Yeah,
he had his run from 68 to I'm looking at his IMDb here. Basically from 68 to Zardoz in 74. And then beyond, and then after The Exorcist, he puts up consistent sevens. Like he puts, you know what I mean? He puts up consistent, well-received movies. This is a little lower, and he's got a couple, lower than that, around this 5.5 to 6 area, but all sevens. Like that means it's a watchable movie. I would put this movie at around a 7. Spoilers, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's a highly watchable movie that deals with some social stuff, and coming off Deliverance, it's like he wanted to make a point there and he wanted to make another point here.
Well, yeah, so after Lord of the Rings was rejected, he got into his mindset of a completely fictional story, and he did want to do an Arthurian type quest, and so that's where Zardoz began, was with these little ideas. And Sean Connery was optioned to play Gandalf originally, and he turned it down
because he
thought it didn't make any sense to him.
He didn't understand the script, but he did Zardoz.
Well, there is an explanation as to why he ended up in Zardoz.
Wait, hold on. I actually have our first theory of the night.
I don't understand why what's so powerful about these rings of power.
No, my first theory of the night is that he read the script and he saw how many times he gets to fondle women, and he was like, I'm in 100%. You can
look at this scene here. I literally throw her across the barn.
Just whip her across the barn.
That's a wild part of the movie.
There's like a part where he just walks over and grabs a girl by the boob, and I'm like, Ed, what are you doing?
He's brutal. That's what he does.
Okay. Yeah, there is some context to it, but the fact that it's Sean Connery makes it suspect at the same time.
There's like literally 10 sequences where they look into his mind and watch him raping people.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. But so Sean Connery, though, at the time when it was time to start making Zardoz, he was leaving James Bond. The Broccoli Productions were kind of trying to find a new direction, and he was trying to reestablish his career and avoid typecasting, and nobody would hire him. And so it was kind of under duress that he accepted this role, and it was originally Burt Reynolds who was going to play Zed.
Oh, so they gave him the Burt Reynolds,
the same guy.
Well, because Burt Reynolds was falling ill at the time, and so they instead went with Sean Connery, who was available and desperate, and so desperate to wear that outfit.
He's like,
and
are you telling me I get to wear thigh-high boots?
Boots.
Bring them on.
Sorry. I'm so sorry that this is happening.
The reality is his ass is really literally in front of me every time you do that.
That's funny
Um,
too that you say that because as he walks away from you in the movie, a lot of the time his it's hiked up a little bit. It's blasting cheek. A little bit. Anyway,
hate to
His
see you
red
go. Love
diaper
to
is
watch you walk
riding
away.
right up my fucking ass.
So yeah, and then Borman after this movie went on to do things like Excalibur, but yeah, nobody watch Exorcist 2. It's a waste of time. It's not even interesting. But the thing that is consistent with Borman in a lot of his movies is one, his technical ability. That he is actually a very good technical director. That his the texture and color timing and the focusing, like it's actually always that's a part of what makes Zardoz interesting, is that for how simple it is, it's actually quite captivating in its look. Like for someone that's using dry cleaner laundry bags to depict the future, like it actually looks cool.
It is weird, like, because there are moments where you're like, ugh, but then there's other moments where you're like, oh, this is really, really interesting looking, and you can tell like there's some artistry going on that goes beyond just like slap that there, slap that here, and some of the stuff I think is just dated, whereas at the time it probably would have looked really impressive and cool.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the Barbarella thing. I used the big like balloon.
Barbarella is a masterpiece, and everything looks sick.
Okay, fair enough. You're right. There were two things that came to mind while I was watching this movie as far as direction goes, and it was Ari Aster clearly took some inspiration from like those like quiet, long moments. A lot of directors probably actually took inspiration, but also like Black Mirror. This kind of felt like a Black Mirror-y kind of a premise a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Especially inside the vortex with the rich people in a world that just looks like Britain, just looks like the UK, but with some oddly sci-fi adjacent clothing. You know,
I was going through sort of the Rolodex of like all the things that this reminds me of, and you know, those are good examples. I was thinking more like Children of Men sort of thing, like, and even like it has like a Clockwork Orange vibe to it. And then I was looking into it a little bit. I'm like, oh, apparently technical advisor on this movie, Stanley Kubrick, just showed up to be like, yeah, all right, let's fix this for you. Yeah. That's how Stanley Kubrick. Yeah. That's how he talks. It's so weird. He's like, okay, what do you want? What do you need?
I was expecting more of this piece of shit.
No, he's like, oh. If you've ever heard an interview with him, he sounds like he's, you know, old time radio.
But no, down the road, you guys should do Excalibur. It's another Wild Borman film for sure, but it's where you see a lot of, at least in a technical aspect, a lot of his stuff that he's developing here comes to fruition there. But yeah, done all sorts of stuff, but by far, Zardoz is one of those hallmarks. But he actually has a funny little quote when it came time for this movie in the late, I think, it was early 2000s when they did like the remastering of it for Blu-ray, and he asked them like, why? He's
what do you mean?
Not that he doesn't like his own movie, but you know, he kind of sees it for what it is. He's not kidding himself. And so that he was quoted to say, the movie went from failure to classic without having to pass through success, which is
still hasn't made barely made its money back even up to today. It's like, oh yeah, it still is like almost just got out of the red recently kind of thing.
Yeah. Free copies with your lemonade outside. Yeah.
Which, you know, it's kind of depressing because it is an interesting concept, and like to be working on Lord of the Rings and have that on the horizon, and then that kind of gets taken away from you, and your response is like, okay, well, I still have the juices flowing in terms of creating an original fantasy world. Yeah. Let me do this. And like he had written a treatment, I think that only took place like a little bit in the future, and he couldn't really get it to where he wanted to. So he pushed it into like, let's just go as far into the future as we need to make it so that the Earth is unrecognizable, and there's almost like no framework for us to even realize where this could be, or like what like race these people are, or like what part of the world they're in. We'll just have little bits and pieces of artwork, and these people will be the curators of the old world, but they're, you know, there to ensure the safety of the future while like relenting their present or whatever. Like there's just like all these crazy heady concepts going on, all while being like, oh yeah, it's also inspired by Wizard of the Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Interestingly, I when this movie ended, I watched it on Disney Plus, and do you know what movie was suggested to me directly after it, which I kept thinking about a lot while watching? Planet of the Apes: Battle for Earth. I think is like the second or third one.
Battle for Earth.
Of the classic Battle of the Apes.
Of the classic ones, yeah.
Oh
and
gosh.
I was like, that's what those scenes on the beach where it's just the Brutals chasing the peasants reminded me of. Like seeing old clips of Planet of the Apes. You'll probably won't see us do a Planet of the Apes movie on this channel unless,
maybe one day if we ever get a budget and we do that, we're gonna go to a beach, we're gonna rent a horse, and you're gonna chase me down. I'll be wearing a Zardoz bathing suit, and you can throw a net on me, and then that'll be the intro video.
And I'll have Planet of the Apes like 70s ape makeup on.
Yeah, like the old flappy mouth. I'm like,
the weird, fully anthropomorphic, just a person with like vaguely racist paint on their face. Yeah, okay. Well, that's John Boorman in a nutshell. How did I get into this show?
I mean, there's lots of other like interesting stuff around the making of this movie, that because it was all shot in Ireland, and it took place obviously during like heavy sort of IRA movements and things. So like the movie was almost like halted from being made because they were trying to import all these rifles and stuff as props, and and like it was completely shut down from any kind of importation of firearms completely because of the terrorist organization that was like thriving at that time. So the movie just like almost didn't get made. And they're like, they're not real guns though. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're real or not.
I'm just imagining the IRA using the Zardoz head to fly around and barf guns on them.
No, they like rob a Zardoz truck. They're looking for the rifles, but all they have are the helmets and the bathing suits. They're like, fuck.
And loaves of green bread.
Yeah, we robbed the wrong truck. All right, well, try them on. What?
And bandoliers of just blanks. What are you drinking there, Tim? I'm curious about your juice of the night.
It is Dollarama brand mixed drink.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Grape flavor, it looks like.
It is heavily grape flavor. I better not spill it on anything, otherwise it'll be purple forever.
Purple forever. If do you guys have any more fun facts about the direction of this film, or do you want to start fucking talking about it?
It'll come up as we talk about this movie for sure.
Zardoz.
We have to talk about it. All right, you the body.
The body.
Ho, 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 ho! Everybody back up, because here comes the body of the episode.
The body of the Sean Connery.
I would like to immediately just say something. There is a situation that has come up almost every single week this month where this sort of thing kind of happens.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
So Zardoz is said 25 seconds into this film.
I thought you were going to say 2,500 times in the movie.
And also 2,500 times in the movie. But somehow we picked 4 movies this month where the thing that they're talking about through the whole film, whether it be the name of the character in the first 2, the sport they're playing in rollerball, and the overarching god that's fucking ruling the place, for some reason it just fell that way. Where
Listen, if we watched a movie called Zardoz and they didn't say Zardoz in it, I would be a little disappointed.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But we've never had 4 in a row where they say the name of the movie and in the first minute in a row.
It speaks of the genre in a way too, because like at that time, because rollerball was what, late 70s, early 80s or early 80s?
No, it's 1 year after this. I was 75 and this is 74.
So when you look at the movies you've done this month, like at that time, marketing for these kinds of things to get people's attention, it was like monosyllabic and something unique, and it had to be from the movie so that you can always show the picture right next to the word all the time, so that the marketing was as streamlined as possible. And you can just imagine, like, especially for something like Barbarella or Flash Gordon or whatever, like just a cigar chewing, greasy, sloppy producer, just like, you got to put it everywhere and you got to make it big and bold and simple. You know, we got to get the idiots.
I want
in
to
here.
see Barbarella on McDonald's cups. I want to see Barbarella on windshield wipers.
Yeah.
When
Zardoz
Flash
gotta take
Gordon,
me places.
when Flash Gordon isn't on the screen, I want people to be asking, "Where's Flash Gordon?"
Exactly.
And I also want them when they leave the theater to be saying, "Where's Flash Gordon?" I want
Where
people
did
to
he go?
believe that he's real.
and
A real
then
football player.
yeah, and then like you get chumps like me who hear the word Zardoz and get excited, like, what is Zardoz? I got to find out. And then when you find out, you're both excited and disappointed at the same time.
I think you find out it's the first spoken word in the movie is Zardoz.
Zardoz. Let me set the stage for us.
Please.
Okay.
A floating head introduces the world of Zardoz. The deity proclaims, "The gun is good, the penis is evil," establishing a bizarre dystopian society. And my first note was
Well, because
set
the
deep
penis shoots seeds and the gun shoots death. That's what
That's
he's
true.
like, you know. He's
My-
also basically saying they're the same fucking thing.
Mhm.
Guns are
True,
penises.
and people, guns are penises, and people cause death. So there's it's very cyclical.
Mhm.
My first note was set in the deep future, so these events haven't occurred, but they may. Narrator is the puppet master. Reminds me of the Beyonder a little bit from Marvel.
Mhm.
Did you guys like the way he was floating at us, being like, "Hello there, my name is Arthur Poopy Poop,
With his,
and I'm
with his weird
Zardoz."
little sharpied on goatee for some
Yeah.
reason.
Because he can't grow in the future in this world. These fucking Eternals, basically, the concept is they're all fucking twinks, hairless twinks, so they can't grow facial hair. And they haven't like breeded enough to breed facial hair back into their group.
And then along comes Sean Connery.
And he's like,
I'm the hairiest man who ever lived in the wasteland.
Your hair, more hair than man. Look at my braided locks. My dad had a
You
friend
should see what's beneath this diaper, this red diaper.
covering pubes up. My dad had a friend when I was a kid who kind of looked like kind of looked like Willie Nelson, but he had I've always imagined Willie Nelson to be an old gray man, but he looked like if Willie Nelson was young. And as soon as I saw this ponytail, this braided ponytail, I was reminded that when I was a kid, my dad had all stoner long hair friends, and they all had this same fucking look. They all had this. My dad,
Brutals, yeah.
my dad had like a mullet that was so long he could braid it, and with the same mustache when I was like 9 years old. It was a look. It was the style.
There was a bit of an extrapolation in that look. I find that the exterminators that wore that red bikini outfit and that look that they had.
He also wore that red bikini. Did I forget to mention that? Or?
I was gonna say, did all your dad's friends show up wearing red bikinis and like, "Hey, Jason,
With the
what's up?"
fucking nightmare mascot. What's up? You want to go and be brutal?
Boner alert.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Boner alert.
But the look of the Eternals and of the Exterminators, they're almost extrapolations of like 1960s, 1970s culture of Hell's Angels, bikers, and hippies, free love and free speech and stuff like that at the time.
Right.
I couldn't
It's almost
help
like that's
thinking
evolved into the
whole
future.
time that I'm watching this. It's 74, so AIDS hasn't come out yet, or is it? It's
Yeah,
it
they're
hasn't-
waiting longer to release AIDS. It's going to be a big hit.
But my point is that I bet Sean Connery was running train on this set. He's such a
Jason,
piece of
just because you
shit.
want to fuck Sean Connery doesn't mean everybody on the set wanted to fuck Sean Connery.
That's what I meant, I think.
Yeah. Excuse me, miss. May I grab you by the teat, please?
Teat.
No, Mr. Connery.
Boner alert.
The worst news program ever.
That's just it. Yeah. But I mean, so like that opening sequence it's pretty powerful, as like weird as it is, and like, you know, there's like this innate sort of juvenile reaction I have to a giant stone head saying the penis is evil. I'm like, yeah, true, the penis is evil. Tell me more, giant head. Zardoz, I need more information. But like, it's immediately setting sort of expectations right after the floating head basically tells us, like, I've been manipulating everything, and it's now time for you to understand the story of Zardoz. See you later. He disappears.
When I was
Like,
rewatching
that's cool.
it, when I was rewatching it, I was kind of imagining if some hack director or producer was trying to remake this now, and how they would, you know, not do that kind of intro. They wouldn't have the floating head of Arthur Freyd explaining that he is Zardoz, that this is a sham. It's kind of wild that, like, you look back and think that was just kind of from the outset of this. They're just going to do this way. This is fake.
Pretty cool,
And,
though. Like,
yeah, whereas like if a modern movie did it, they would be hiding it until the very end.
yeah, how they're basically telling you the twist before the twist, and then he's also, you know, he's making the allegory with Wizard of Oz right out of the gate as well, and then he's also like kind of giving you the middle finger, just being like, oh, you guys are also just a bunch of actors in a play that's been created by your stupid god that you believe in. So see you later. I'm God, and God doesn't exist because God is just basically me. And then he leaves. And then we get the intro of the head, and then at the end of that sequence, Sean Connery literally turns to the camera and shoots us, being like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, I'm kind of digging the attitude this movie has towards the audience at that point, because it's kind of getting me on board with like, what is this? What is all this? What's going on here? I need to know more.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the superpower of this movie, is that like, the more I learn, the more I want to know. Whereas like, I'm not ever kind of left being like, okay, I get it. Let's wrap it up here, folks. I understand what's going on. I always kind of want a little bit more of like, well, give me more of this world. Explain this to me.
I hope you guys didn't cheat for the MPAA rating game, because this movie does a unique thing that happened in cinema from time to time back in these days, where they showed the whole credits at the start. And I'm going 3 minutes left in this movie, and I'm like, there's so much story to be told. We'll get to that obviously in an hour and a half or whatever when we get
like
there.
how you refer to it as a cheat, but that's just how it used to be. Like, that's how they did it. Yeah, it was always the beginning.
Yeah.
No. I meant, hope you guys didn't cheat.
Oh, for
Hope
the game
you guys
later.
didn't see the MPAA
no.
plastered on screen.
I do not. That information doesn't go in my brain when I'm watching a movie.
Okay.
I don't care about
Yeah,
that.
and I take the game far too seriously to cheat. So.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I love
Tim
that.
actually poked himself in the eyes with both his thumbs as it came out. He's like, oh no! Ah!
The next note
That's why
that
we
I
had to
had,
start the
though,
show late.
he
was
I need
icing his
to
eyeballs.
realize-
eye matter. The next note that I wrote, though, was this movie is immediately weird. The credits are just the head floating around, and my man James Bond is hiding in some dirt with a gun. So fucking bizarre. It isn't lasers in the extreme future, which is the first thing that I went like, so this future is like we don't learn till much later. It's like a dystopian apocalypse kind of vibe, but I'm still in the headspace that like this man is wearing a futuristic red diaper. Obviously this is the extreme future, so it's going to be a space odyssey. I'm still there. Like, that's where my head's at, and I'm like, he's shooting gunpowder at people and bullets.
Yeah.
What a crazy thing to see in like it's the 23rd century or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that the smart decision is to do that, because it makes it feel more primitive, that they're shooting out shotguns and shotgun shells and guns that we're familiar with now 200 years in the future. is like, or more than that, like almost 2,500 years, or what? Sorry, the 250 years.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the equivalent, you would think, in a futuristic time they would have lasers, like you're saying, Jason, and like, you know, the Eternals have little rings that give them powers to make your brain shut off. They can turn you blind for a second. Like that's where the technology goes, right? So the guns, the shotguns and stuff are like the equivalency of clubs, like being thrown out. You know, like, here's a club, go fight a psychic who can, you know, stop you from being able to use your index fingers to shoot those guns. It's like, the more you learn about the world, the more these things make sense. But there is something very primitive feeling about a pile of guns being thrown into a big mud pit and a bunch of mostly naked men in weird stone masks clamoring over each other to get these guns. And
it's literally like an Idiocracy future where we've picked things from a time when the movie was made, stuck to that, and that's what the extreme future is going to be like. We're sticking to the most primitive ideals of the era when the media was created. So guns, obvious problem in the 70s, you know, there was a war 20 years ago.
And like Tim
war
was
is on
saying,
the horizon
the
again.
creator of this universe is like, you know, he has a very sort of personal connection to war and being anti-war, right? So this kind of thing is, to people who are affected by guns and, you know, suffer from, you know, I don't want to get too hard into mental illness that is associated around it, but like that would be a pretty intense image to just see like a big monstrous head barfing up guns to be like, take these guns and shoot off the penises of your enemies. Like, oh god, okay, all right.
Yeah, and this is like written and performed by people that were either children of or people that did live through things like World War II, where they kind of felt like the world was about to end with all this war and madness. And so the taking those very simple images, like later on in the movie with the burnt library and all that, like that was probably just something left over from World War II.
Imagine my surprise when I'm going in expecting a Space Odyssey after, you know, Flash Gordon and Barbarella, and then I'm immediately faced with like these harsh realities.
Was, as Borman said, that for a sci-fi movie, this is not an exploration of outer space but inner space. Was what he offered into that as far as Zardoz went.
I think like another thing he said was like, I wanted to tell something that was a good story, or like at least made people think. And he's like, the difference between a space adventure or science fiction adventure and a science fiction story is that a science fiction adventure is basically King Arthur but in space clothes, whereas a science fiction story is something that you have to really think hard about to it's supposed to make you feel scared, you know. The future is a scary thing. You're supposed to be scared of it.
Think about something like Krull, where Krull was just kind of like, well, it's got this weird,
or a movie that he made a couple years later, Excalibur. I think he loves his fantasy as well. I mean, I don't think that, like, you know, he's not one of those directors like, I'm only going to make things that's going to make you think. I think he's like, but you know, it is important.
If he had made Lord of the Rings, there would have been social commentary in it, though. You know what I mean?
And Sean Connery would have been in it.
And the original Gandalf.
I need money, please. Somebody help me. I'm homeless and I'm wearing only a red diaper.
It turns out
they keep calling me James Bond and they won't put me in movies.
Gandalf, what are you wearing?
You shall not pass.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
The penis mightier. You know, the penis mightier.
One ring to rule them all. One ring to bind them.
Okay. I don't want to keep doing that. Anyway, we're not even past the opening, but like we do, like, we get a lot from just so little, right? But again, he then wakes up inside the big dirt mound inside.
Yeah.
And I had already kind of like purged a lot of this movie from my mind, so I was kind of like, what is the dirt and how did he get in here? And that's the mystery, right, throughout the movie, is that they're trying to get him to be like, show us your mind, show us more of the information that you're supposed to do. And he's like, no, I can't remember, I don't remember anything.
The truth.
And so, you know, he's inside the head, and there's like people in sort of like freezer bags, and this is something that I'm still a little bit like, okay, are they other people, like other Eternals that are being regrown? Is that what's going on here?
Because later on in the movie, it's revealed, and that's one thing that's going to be kind of difficult talking about this movie is that it might be a little bit of back and forth.
Just to make it more simple for everybody listening, like in this movie, the Eternals, they're called Eternals because when they die, they are regrown in a bag in a thing called the Tabernacle, and they grow back again. So you can't die. You're basically immortal. But if you break the law in the world, you are then aged. So you will eventually
and then not allowed to die.
Yeah, and then you're just an old crazy person.
I'm a senile.
I found gold in those hills, and you're just like running around as a crazy old person forever.
Yeah, it does a weird thing. We'll get to it, but it does this weird Wizard of Oz thing where kind of it's more like Return to Oz, where there's these groups of people who have gone crazy because of the acts of the people in power. The seniles and the apathetics reminded me of like parts in Return to Oz where they go and these people have been ravaged. This movie,
they're called the Renegades. They're not called the Seniles. They're called the Renegades because they are the ones that break the law. That's so when you break the law, your punishment is that you age a certain amount of time. So
he refers to them as seniles, so I wrote them down as the seniles. But my point is it really felt like this post-apocalyptic world where maybe it wasn't just the Earth that we know, because it's 150, 200 years in the future from where we are now. 300
years in the future, 2290 something, I think.
So it could have been a situation where we had all this technology and all this stuff happen in this universe, much like a Wizard of Oz situation where
200
it's
years is a long time.
200 years is think about what life was like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Basically the Wild West. But
it was basically like Zardoz.
Or it's basically like Zardoz.
Yeah.
But this reminded me of the Extreme Future in the Time Machine, where or Idiocracy once again, like where you go so far into the future that it just becomes cavemen again, but in their own weird way with some relics of the past sprinkled in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to bring up one little thing that annoyed me about him sneaking around the head for the first time. It does the thing that I didn't like from Escape from New York, where it's just Snake on a big matte painting, kind of just sneaking around. And this movie has this weird time filler thing that it does a couple times where it's just like, okay, move to the next thing. That long scene at the end where it's just showing stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with
that's
you.
A lot to talk about. Yeah,
that's fair, and it's like it's artistic, and it's it's supposed to be him like confused about where he is.
I don't think that I fully would have gotten the scope of what this thing is had they not done that. Because I would have been like, oh, it's one room inside the mouth. But I think it's supposed to be massive. Like it's supposed to be like a palace that he's inside of, and I get that from that exploratory moment where I'm like, oh, it's like a giant castle that he's inside of that floats around.
And for us, the audience, to watch it, that we can't make sense of this. That this is made of something we don't understand and operated by a means that we can't comprehend. Yeah. And as far as the bodies hanging around, because later. And once again, it's kind of difficult to talk about this movie in a linear sense because there's things that make sense later on.
That's
those bodies, I believe, are other Brutals that Arthur Freyd, who is the personality of Zardoz, is breeding because he bred Zed. That he's breeding the exterminators. For a purpose, and they're trying to understand as to why.
I see. Okay, so he's like sealing. He's like keeping them fresh for later. He's like,
he's got his.
These are good ones.
Yeah,
that makes complete sense. And I was like, what's going on? Why are they here? What is going on here? And they don't really go back to it, but that makes because he is basically like a scientist. In quote, he's more like a eugenicist, I guess.
Yeah. Especially from a 1974 viewpoint, he would be a breeding via eugenics.
Yeah.
Which, like especially for people at that time, anyway, it was a thing for them. Anyway, so that and Zed kind of meandering around through that, like there's he doesn't understand what exactly he's doing. But it's almost for the benefit of us that we have to kind of experience that as well, that We
Okay.
can't make sense of this just yet.
And if we did, if there was a scene where he's like, I'm going to get in that head and I'm going to find out the truth, we'd be like, oh, okay. What?
I have a fun fact. The Stonehead was a practical effect constructed at Pinewood Studios in England, which is somewhere where many iconic sci-fi movies were filmed.
Mhm.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Jurors.
Um,
This has a sort of brutalist architecture feel that Star Wars has for the plant, like when they're in the brutalist, the exterminator area, and inside this head, it feels very, remember we were talking about like Flash Gordon and Barbarella, how they're like big and colorful and magical, and then you look at Star Wars and it's very like George Lucas had a vision for how sterile he wanted in the interiors of ships to be.
Mhm.
And then you go down to planet level and it's very like,
Dirty.
cool and
Lived
dirty.
in.
And look at Hoth, look at Tatooine, look at the Ewok planet.
Endor, the moon, the forest
Sorry,
moon of
I
Endor.
forgot for a second.
Mhm.
Listen,
Why would a planet-
I'm
why
impressed
would a
that you
Wookiee-
knew too. Okay. It's fine.
Why would a Wookiee live on a planet full of tiny Ewoks? It doesn't make sense. You must
He
have quit.
doesn't. He doesn't live there. It's not
No, I
his
know.
planet.
That's
He just
it's
fought
the-
for
it's
the
from
freedom.
South
That's all.
Park.
I know what it's from,
Yeah.
and I've been mad about it ever since I heard it. So I agree. Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty adept sort of like analysis of the visual style, but like it's also very unique. Like it's a thing that they did in this movie, and if you ever did it again, you would immediately be compared to Zardos. You cannot do
Yeah.
that again without drawing the comparison to Zardos, and I think that's why you never see a floating statue head anymore in your sci-fi, because it's just Zardos now.
No more.
But it is cool. Like I think it's cool. Like I think it's actually really cool. Like it's frightening and weird, and like I can't imagine being a person who only understands violence and like forcing people to farm. And every once in a while, when the harvest needs to be collected, a giant stone head appears from the clouds, being like, "Bring me your wheat." Like, oh fuck! It's scary, man.
There's actually a few comparisons that I was making in my brain while watching this again to Conan the Barbarian in the comic books, and specifically with like how the Eternals, they actually have the kind of pharaoh headdress sometimes, and including at the beginning with Arthur Freyd, where he had that, and especially with the design of the facial hair drawn onto him, that it's almost ancient Egyptian in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the face of Zardoz on the stone head, on that head, it's like non-classical, it's like non-Hellenistic looking. It's very savage. And I was thinking about if that was more or less intentional to match, not just with the setting of the world, but like how they were making the world to be, that they were maintaining a aggressive, violent, angry world.
Yeah. No matter what voice comes out of that head, it's going to sound scary because its face is so angry and twisted, right?
Yeah.
The face itself reminds me almost of like a Shakespearean era sort of like statue that you would see carved into.
It reminded me of
theater
the statues from that art room when they're when there's all those famous paintings.
But very twisted, like those
Yeah.
those are always very neutral faced, right? Like because all the statues and stuff look like they're from ancient Greece or ancient Rome or whatever.
Yeah, very
You
expressionless.
see them really good on my screen here too, as well as Tim's. But yeah, they're fucking. That's 3 different faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one that I put on your head is like a one that someone made, and like I just wanted 2 from 2 different angles, so it looked like we were kind of like having a conversation instead of just using the same one. I wanted 2 different ones.
With your voices echoing inside the
Yeah, being
helmets.
like, Jason,
hey, did you see this one? Welcome back to the show this week.
the Zardoz
Gather
of it all.
round, freaks.
So, man, what was I gonna say? It was something about
The look of the heads.
it was oh, I mean, yeah, it was kind of like you can't compare, or you can't have a floating head anymore, but you will see it still, and in terms of like all of the science fiction that I've consumed my entire life, you do still see influences from Zardoz. And like
Mhm.
one that I would bring up that is kind of like a really dumb movie, but like I really enjoy is the Chronicles of Riddick, the second Riddick movie of like the Pitch Black trilogy or whatever.
Yeah.
And like there are these guys called like the Necrocons or something. I can't remember what they're exactly called, but
Yeah.
all of their ships are designed to look like these sort of ancient Babylonian statues that are like overbearing and frightening and gothic or whatever. But like it's very much like a Zardoz thing, where the way they get away with it is they're like, there's going to be a ton of them, and they're going to be big spikes that stick in the ground. No one's going to think Zardoz. And if it was just one floating head, you'd be like Zardoz. But if it's a ton,
Yeah.
no, that's not Zardoz.
Zardozes.
That's the Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah, and like I was also like thinking about things like Stargate, whatever, with like floating
Yeah.
pyramids, and like this has kind of a floating pyramid element to it in a sense, or at least
That's
somewhat
a good
shaped.
point, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, it does kind of remind me of like almost a pyramid, kind of some like iconography wise, symbology wise.
Well, it has the sort of Sphinx look to it, right? Like with the hair.
Yeah.
Like I think it's very deliberately meant to look like one of the Egyptian headdresses that you see. Because I mean, what's his face when he shows up? Like, hello, how's it going? Like he's wearing
He's wearing the headdress.
basically like an Egyptian headdress. Yeah.
Yeah, as are some of the Eternals, and after Sean Connery finally sneaks into the vortex through the head by riding the head. Well, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, because while he's in there and he gets out of the pile of grain and explores the head, he notices there's somebody walking around inside the head with him, and then confronts him at the interior of the mouth of Zardoz and shoots him before realizing who it is exactly.
Yeah. I call the mouth of Zardoz the penis hole.
The penis hole. It likes to suck. Let me move us ahead a bit. Zed arrives in the vortex, an isolated community where humans, known as the Eternals, live in a utopia free from death and aging, which we don't know yet, but that's basically what we're going to learn. Zed becomes a curiosity for them. And the first thing that I met with, so I don't know what the timeline of this world is at this point. And they show those rings that have like they can do projection, which was a really cool effect. We have technology like that now. 50 years later.
I mean, it's a projection. Yeah, it's just
and they had like glass, like fairly clean glass standing up, and that's how they were able to have that holographic look, which is how they accomplish it in a lot of other movies at that time as well.
I think we should, before we go too far, like we should talk about like he said, I orchestrated all of these events, and everything you're about to see was my design, and I'm so smart and everyone's so stupid. And then he leaves. And then when you see him in the movie, he's like, oh God, you shot me right in the arm. How could you shoot me? Ah! And then he flies.
Yes.
I forget what he says exactly, but like, kind of calls him a fool that was about to tell you everything, or I would have told you everything.
Yeah.
And then almost throws himself out.
The way, because he floats off like the fucking Wicked Witch of the West, like he's floating in the air for a bit. I'm like, is Zardoz falling? Like, is the head falling? What's going on here? But beyond that, I'm like, okay, but you also have to, everything that happens in the movie, you have to think back to him saying like, I orchestrated everything, or else you're not gonna like fully kind of grasp what's going on, because this guy is, everything that's happening in this movie is a grand design of one person's, I guess hundreds of years of planning, right, is coming to fruition. And watching it in that light makes the movie a little bit more interesting, because it's almost like you're watching like a Knives Out murder or something. You're like, okay, so what's happening here? Okay, so I need to know how this plays into that and how these things are going to affect other things.
So that's like Knives Out, the two Knives Out movies. Watching them a second time is a much different experience. I imagine you guys, I only watched it once, so most of my notes have questions.
But the difference thing between this and a Knives Out is that he literally tells you at the beginning, like, I'm the one who did it. So try and watch and figure it out.
But similarly, watching this a second time, connects these dots. Like I'm going through what you guys probably experienced watching it at second.
Well,
or
the first
third
time you watch this movie, you're like, what
the fuck?
There's like 30 seconds of like soapy tits being rubbed. And I'm
No,
like,
I
why is this
understood what was
happening?
happening there. They were trying to give him a boner.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but like that, the fact that they're showing that to the audience as well is like, fucking cut to someone's face, please. This
And
is
I was
very
like,
awkward.
This is interesting. What a great movie.
Oh, that's why
Is
you
it-
bumped it up to a 3.5. You're like,
Yeah.
it was a 3.
It was a 2.8 until I got to that point.
Boner. But
Venus is evil.
actually, they do a lot of quick world building when Zed first arrives in the vortex, and like because what we're not sure what to expect of this, because so far we're seeing very familiar visuals that like this just looks like a country home, and there's nothing fantastic quite yet until he gets the ring. But on the wall you see like the evolution of man leading up to or humans leading up to the Eternals or the Immortals, pardon me. And
it is funny that like when you see that the Homo sapien still looks like a goofy like they're still like they're still like they're pretty much like a primitive looking creature.
Yeah. And then he finds out that he happens to be in the home of Arthur Frayne, the guy who is piloting the Zardoz head.
Yeah.
And takes his ring and realizes that this ring is connected to this world.
Yeah.
There's the world of the vortex.
It gives him information. It like literally just starts info dumping on him, which is cool. But like even before he finds the ring, the whole room is an info dump.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like, okay, so this is Arthur's room, which you find a little bit after that. But on the wall, I think it says something like, from this room from the past, I dream of the future, or I look to the future, or like I build the future, something like that.
Yeah, and from the intro you guys cut, that's where you get Sean Connery holding the ring towards his head, and you see the projected eye on his head, which is like, a big foreshadow in a sense of things to come, of, especially told through 1970s hippie terms of opening your third eye and opening your mind to new realities.
And they put like a crystal in your head like, as a third eye later to give you your psychic powers or whatever. But then he also like, this is where the smart shit comes in, where it's like he goes through the little the tinsel streamers, the Christmas streamers, and then there's a big purple curtain with a Z on it, and Zed is like,
Zed, that's my name. My name's Zed.
And he opens it and it's Zardoz on the other side. He's like, oh shit.
Literally the scene from Oz where they meet Oz, and it's like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
But he's like thought so much about the fact that he's created this guy in order to have him infiltrate into the society that he's like, it logically the Zardoz head will land nearest to my house, so he should logically go to my house and he'll probably explore it. So I'm gonna set up a fake Zardoz shrine in my house to like make him immediately be like,
Zardoz is real. This is Zardoz's house. Holy shit! I'm in Zardoz's home.
Take a picture of me quick. But then, given the ring, he's exploring the world around him, and the part that's I find kind of interesting was when he's kind of using the ring to zap on things. Watch this, watch that, and then when he gets to the flowers, he's from the outside world, and like it's a wasteland, but he must have seen a flower before and has some idea of more or less its role in the natural setting.
But he's never seen like these
this abundance
devices.
Yes,
balloon devices that
concept of like a decorative flower doesn't make sense to him.
Yeah,
like,
the idea
seen one growing in the,
but he's like, why would you grow all these useless plants? You can't even eat them.
And it's like,
for
decoration. He's like,
does it grow guns? Does it grow penises?
Is this some sort of bullet plant? Can I get ammunition from these fucking flowers?
But it's merely there for decorative, which would be something that
punches the flower at, has sex with it.
Yeah, throws a net on it. But
I'm counting on these flowers.
But this idea of a leisurely world is foreign to him. And so there's this like sense of exploring, and we're kind of given these little hints along the way that this place is something that he is extremely unaccustomed to, and it would make no sense to him in his point of view of the world.
That's an excellent point, because at this point in the movie, I'm still like, oh, did he time travel? But it's, you know what I mean? I didn't put together that he just like went into like,
Yeah.
you know, there's this video game called Chrono Trigger. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You might have heard of it. And you go to this point, it's a time travel thing. And you go to this point where
I heard that the Chrono Trigger movie was almost made, and Sean Connery was supposed to be in it, but he turned it down because he didn't understand the script.
He was going to be
Zardos too.
I don't understand
be
this
Merle.
Chrono Trigger. What is it?
No, but this movie reminds me of a segment of that game so much, because there's this floating island called Zeal, okay, where they're all like the turbo elite, and you can travel back down to Earth, where it's the Ice Age, and all of the peasants live down there, and they're living basically a very similar. They all live in one cave because there's so few people in existence, and you can travel up to Zeal through like a teleporter or a vortex. And when you get up there, they're all weird, and they're all like, they're the turbo elite, and they're all decadent. They love decadent things. They dress.
They don't age. When they die, they come back in a little paper bag they punch out of.
But it felt very like now I'm recognizing that back in 1993 when that game came out, that was actually an allegory for the same kinds of things that this movie's talking about.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the creators of Chrono Trigger were like, what if we have a Zardos part?
Well, and partially that's also for Chrono Trigger anyway, not to diverge too much, but that's also partially inspired by, apart from Gulliver's Travels, where there's the floating island of Laputa, where all of these supposed intellectuals live, and they do a brain tax by giving good ideas to people. In return, they give them food and everything, but there's actually a huge disconnect, and they're a corrupt society. But stuff like old literature like that most certainly influenced many things, and probably was not the first idea of that. And so you can kind of see the connective string of this into things like Zardoz, and eventually landing into other creative projects like Chrono Trigger, where that social commentary of the elite versus the underdogs.
Flash Gordon had an element of that, but they weren't really able to show it that well when they were trying to show like the slums. They couldn't really. It was hard. Steve talked about this at length during that episode, where it's hard to differentiate between the slums and the rest of the city because they only had the budget to like have.
That was Barbarella, but yeah.
Oh, that was Barbarella. Sorry, yes.
But no, your point stands, and like, you know, it's always an interesting thing to go into, right? Is like people who have unlimited everything, right? They have no need for food. They have every piece of information that's ever been discovered through their touch sharing memory abilities. They have psychic powers. They can't die. All of it should be this perfect life, but all it's led them to is a sense of boredom and dissatisfaction, because they don't even really know what the real world is. And like that's
and if you do crimes, we will age you into senility, which is that's scarier than dying, in my opinion.
Well, the absence of contrary opinions, and the absence of purpose, and that can starts to breed that apathy to them, and then when they start to show it, that's when they're punished.
And there's like no direct real ruler of this world. Like Consuela and May are kind of like the matriarchs.
It's a council of people.
Yeah,
they all sit around and they make decisions together, but you're right. It very much seems like there are people that have more influence over the group.
They go to talk to the world's oldest man who like can't die, and he's like, I just want to die, I don't know. And he's laying there and he finally dies.
Well, he's also the one that created this world, right? Like he's the one who made the tabernacle. But like you know, it also seems like people who do seem very influential and powerful, Friend, for example, the character's name is Friend.
His name is Friend.
You think that he has more power than he does, because as soon as he goes against them, they immediately are like, no, we're gonna do something even wilder to you. We're not just gonna age you, we're gonna like age half of your entire body and brain,
give you
so you're like a
stroke
two-face.
face.
Yeah.
At first I was like, did they just give him a stroke? But it's like, no, he's like literally down the center of his body, like he's like Two-Face, where everything is like old on one side and then young on the other. So it's like some sort of weird twisted new version of punishing
where
somebody.
he kind of fades in and out of clarity at that point in the movie. After Zed is confronted by the Eternals eventually, I think initially, if I recall correctly, by May, where it's that great shot over the lake, which you can kind of see future stuff for stuff like Excalibur later on. But that part of the movie is actually, I think, my favorite, where you finally get a sense of certain stakes as far as Zed is concerned, where as soon as he meets the first immortal, she's able to incapacitate him immediately.
Yeah. So just to push the story forward a little bit, there's two key Eternals. There's Consuela and May.
Mm-hmm.
They want to observe and study Zed. Consuela is suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
May wants
She
to
wants
learn
to kill
from
him like immediately. She's
Yeah.
like, kill his ass.
And because I think Consuela is the one that does like the mind meld to him, and we see that the gross like sexual assault stuff. But that in retrospect, it's brutal and gross.
May is the one that does that. May is the one that like goes in and but she also understands the value because she's looking at their society and realizing that they aren't evolving. They're in this like state of arrested development. They're not gaining the genetic differentials and all the things that are important for human growth, which is new perspective and new ideas. They're stuck, right? They're stuck in just having the same group of people forever.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to figure out, she's veiling it being like, we could discover new types of immunizations and all sorts of things to protect us from getting sick. You know, the apathy disease that we're all scared of, like maybe that. And she, you know, she's presenting it as though it's something than what she's actually trying to do, which is she wants to breed because they can't breed anymore because these guys in this new world can't even get erections because they don't need to anymore. They're like, we haven't had to have an erection in over 500 years. Yeah, like, okay.
It's like the Barbarella thing. Like almost, it's like this is the Earth. The vortex is the Earth that Barbarella left and flew away from, and they might do a mind meld sex where they hold hands and their hair goes all
dun, 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 theories.
Yeah, you know what? That is an official theory. That is an official theory.
Barbarella comes back and she's like, "You'll never believe what I found out there. Sex. Everyone has sex.
So much dick."
Yeah. They're all dead. And she's like, "Oh God."
Oh God.
But May she's trying to extend sort of the ancient world in a way, right? Because they're supposed to be the caretakers of all knowledge and art and creativity and science and all of the like philosophical stretching that humanity has done is contained within the vortex. It's trapped in the vortex, really, and she wants to create a new generation of people to be able to like have them not necessarily get back to like the brutalism, but to be able to expand them even more because they've, you know, again, they're stagnant, they're sterile, literally.
I made a note here that says this is before I've seen the whole movie. You guys are gonna be like, no, but I wrote a note at this point where I say,
you've seen the whole movie now.
Well, I'm still gonna say it because it's an interesting little. Is this a story of trying to explain why you can't be so brutal? It's like Zardoz is Trump in an idiocracy future. Now we know that it isn't so cut and dry, but I think that there's a bit of Zardoz doing the wrong thing to Zardoz is Trump. That's dumb. That's incorrect overall. I think even for where I'm at in the movie for the first time viewing, it's incorrect, but they're so captivated by the brutality that they think that they can learn from it that I was so shocked by the sexual assault stuff that I didn't recognize till the movie was over that it had to show how brutal these people were and how primitive they were.
Yeah,
I think ultimately.
Well, like you made the comparison earlier to Children of Men, where that movie does a fantastic job, like showing just how bad things are getting, and it emphasizes the potential for good, for change. That like there's a motivation and need for change because of this, and there's actually like a lot of extremes thrown around in Zardoz, where there's the extremes of the outside of the vortex and the outlands and the world of the Brutals, where it is nothing but violence and rape and murder. And then the extreme of within the vortex is that it's nothing. There's nothing happening. There's no progress. There's no growth. There's no expanding actual knowledge. It's accumulating facts and maintaining them, but it's not developing new ideas. And so it's these two huge extremes, and neither are working.
Yeah. Yep. It's hard to like make a comparison to directly to today, because it's, when this was made, it was not dealing with what we're dealing with now, which is completely different.
50 years ago.
Yeah. But it is, you can, in a way, make the comparison, but I don't know if it would be what Jason's saying. I don't think that like these people are not Trumpy billionaires. They're more like the ones who are building bunkers and like, the ones who have islands and shit. Like Trump is sort of like a pretender. It would be like if the guy who is making the Zardoz fell out of the Zardoz and then somehow like went around in the muck and got all of them to follow him after that, and he'd be like, okay, so
and that would be like
the wheat is important. Bring me the wheat.
I really like that, Steve. Actually, sorry to cut you off, Tim, but I really like that my jump to conclusion actually opens up the conversation for they're the prepper weirdos. Trump is a pretender. He's a very fake. He's not even like he's a fake billionaire. He's always been a fake billionaire. He's been unsuccessful at being rich for his whole career. But these are like the Mark Zuckerbergs and the celebrities who have the money, hold on to the money, and just want to live lavish lives and party.
They're not even like the celebrity billionaires that we all know from the owning sports teams and creating things that we consume every day. They're the ones that are behind the scenes that you have never heard of. There's countless billionaires that you've never heard their name because they're not buying Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
And like that's scarier. And the thing that this Zardoz guy is doing is frightening, but it's, he is trying to be, he's trying to make actual change, because but he obviously he's doing it in like the most crazy, immoral way possible, which is like forcing people who don't know any better to murder everybody except for those that he gives permission to breed with, so that he can try and create sort of this like perfect race. But he's also trying to create that race in order to destroy what he's part of. So it would be like
spoilers. By the end of the story, I talk about the French Revolution in my last couple of notes. Like it's a very revolution, very revolution that he's trying to do.
He's trying to end everything that he's a part of. He's like a weird magician man who is like, I'm going to pull a trick on all of humanity that's outside of the vortex, but I'm also going to pull a trick on the people that are inside the vortex as well. And the trick is everybody in there is going to die. And these people are going to either figure out our technology and make Earth like better again, or they're just going to die. Like they're going to be too stupid to understand it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really care what outcome happens. He just wants to do it because he's bored and tired, and he's like, I need to do something new.
Mm-hmm.
They even call him like at the beginning, he's an artist. He's just having fun out there. He's being creative. He's doing what he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
Do they watch the Brutals like their television?
Yes, they literally even say it at one point,
which is kind of like a rollerball kind of a thing.
They do watch what's in Zed's mind. Pardon me, in Sean Connery's mind. You don't want to watch, but they're watching in Zed's mind his memories, because they're so understimulated, and they're also out of touch with what's been happening in the Outlands. And Consuela doesn't want to watch it because she doesn't want to corrupt their balance. Yeah. But from a scientific standpoint, she argues that it's important to do this so that we understand what's been happening all this time. And then in the middle of the debate is a friend who is not necessarily a third point of view. Well, I don't know, maybe in a way a third point of view, but a balance between the two where
I would even, I don't know if I would call it a balance, but I would call it a disruptive force that is between the two of them. Like he is there just to kind of
stir the pot.
Yeah, if there's two sort of still waters that are next to each other, he's creating sort of a rift in between the two of them that's like making them even more aggravated against each other.
Yeah. So in that way, he is that third element, which is like a good storytelling convention. You know, that the rule of threes, and then he has this very specific fixation on Zed, and he later reveals that he knows a lot about what Arthur Freyd is up to, that he knows more than he lets on. And Zed takes advantage of that by asking him to show him more of this world in the vortex.
Mm-hmm.
Which he does, but then again, you think back to that opening sequence and you're like, everything is part of the design of Zardoz, and Zardoz is his plan for all of this. And you know, we of course later, way later in the movie, realized that Friend he was sort of like a plant. You know, he was there all along to ensure that Zed got there. Zed got there through Zardos's plans, but Zardos's plans beyond that are he gets in and then he creates so much disruption that everything collapses and eventually we can die. And Friend is there to ensure that last leg, while supposedly, I guess, Arthur is regrowing in his bag, in his Ziploc bag.
And they show that like he's not actually, like, he's been killed, but he's about to be resurrected.
That's the moment in the movie that, like, again, it's like if you blink and you miss it kind of moment where she's like, did he die? And it's like, we cannot give you that information. And then she like looks over in the tabernacle and she's like, oh yeah, he did die. Look there he is growing. He's like it's like a sack of goo, like pulsating. You're like, okay, yeah, he's in there. He's growing.
Oh, and another thing too, quickly, is that they do explain that for the Outlanders and the Brutals and the Exterminators, there is like a faith system for Zardoz that also goes a little bit beyond the gun is good, the penis is evil, but also that those that are faithful servants of Zardoz will be rewarded in the afterlife by being taken to the vortex where they can live forever.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of his explanation to May as to why he wanted to break into the vortex, because he wanted to see the afterlife without having to die.
But he's also not ever really saying that he broke in. He's like,
yeah, he's not admitting to how he did it. He doesn't want. He's withholding the whole time.
What he did in that moment was he said what you said, which is like, I'm told by Zardoz that when I die, I'll be brought here and I'll live for eternity. And then she's like, in happiness, and he's like, yes, I'm pretty sure, yes. And she's like, so you think you're dead then? And he's like, am I dead? Like, I don't fucking know. You tell me.
Yeah, answering questions with questions. Yeah.
So we get the segment that we're kind of talking about here, where Zed learns about the Eternals' immortality. He becomes aware of his own mission, which is to destroy Zardoz, and a system that's keeping the Eternals in control of the Brutals, which happens around here. And he goes into that. She's like, "Come over here. I want to show you everything." They go into that pyramid. Steve, it's interesting that you put that part in the opening video, but you left out. This is just an aside. This is just a funny thing that I noticed. His acting here, when he goes like that into the pyramid, I laughed out loud. Yeah. And it's so funny because I wanted to say this earlier.
I left it out on purpose because it looks fucking
it's so
dumb.
funny. Like funny in a bad way. But there are a lot of moments in this film where you can almost see on screen the actors hearing the director being given direction. Did you guys notice this throughout the movie?
All right, just look shocked that you're being sucked into a pyramid.
Exactly.
Hole.
Yeah. And this was one of those moments. And Sean Connery is like, I'm a classically trained actor, and you want me to do what? And the director literally go like, ooh. That's how I felt about that.
Where there are moments like that do kind of are a tad jarring and kind of take you out of the movie a little bit. at the same time, in a weird way, I think the fact that Sean Connery seems to be not 100% with this, it really kind of helps that with him being withholding and him hiding something from the Immortals, that his performance is actually extremely subdued comparatively, where everyone else is a little bit more dynamic, and they're walking around the scenery and he's standing perfectly still and being very expressionless and barely observant.
Yeah, the way that I read that is that he's scared. Like he's scared of them. And I mean, for good reason. Like anytime anything happens, they immediately flex their psychic abilities on him and take him out. Like the first time he meets someone, he's knocked out. Second time he wakes up in a weird room and they're like making him relive all of his rapes that he's done, which is fucked. But also, like, you know, we need to know it because we need to know that he's not a good guy. Like he's a bad guy. This is his life beforehand. And then even when you know, we get the point where they vote, they're all like, and like they
do the hand gestures.
3 weeks later, you will die from now. Which they keep giving like countdown timers, which I'm like, okay.
Yeah, there's that other one where it's like you have 7 days to figure out.
But
we never there's a tangible countdown timer, but that never comes into play again.
Every time they do it, it never comes into play. We never know how much time has passed anytime they do it.
It's been one day the whole time, I'm pretty sure.
I assume it had something to do with like the structure of the story on paper, where it's like time is a theme, time is a very important factor. The way they divvy out punishment is through time. The way that they value anything is based on how much youth they have left before they're insane old people who constantly party like they're on the fucking Titanic or whatever. And then so I assume they left it in there as like for thematic reasons, but it really doesn't do anything in terms of like pushing tension for the story. Being like, I guess the only part for me was when he goes into like the art cellar thing or like the art dungeon. It's like, this is where we keep all our art in the art dungeon. We've got a TV that shows a bunch of cars, and we've got all these paintings, and we've also got this old clock.
I made a note about the cars. The fact that this movie takes place in 74 and they show like every car in existence up to a 1974 car. I thought that was funny. Like
he also complains about that, Jason. Did you not hear him complain?
Yes, I did. He was like, "Oh, that's all you got?" Yeah.
He also he says you only did one manufacturer up to one specific year. I wanted every car ever made.
Yeah.
Also, there's a guy named George Satan.
Seder.
Seder.
Oh, Seder? Sorry. I heard Satan. And I was like, excuse me, and they said it again, and I was like, yeah, Satan.
Yeah.
Also, it took me a while to realize his name was Friend, so I just kept, in my notes I have him written down as pervy old twink. Because
I heard Fred the first time. I was like, yeah, that's a reasonable name. And then they were like, Friend. And I was like, oh, interesting.
He's got that chipmunk stuffed cheeks look about him too, which kind of gives a bit of a marble mouth. But
I think they picked a guy who looks like he could be young, but also we can make this guy look old as fuck with a couple of pounds of makeup. It'll be fine.
He reminded me of somebody you would see in the musical Hair. He also reminded me of somebody you would see in the musical Tommy from The Who. Those are things that I was thinking about when I saw this man.
Mm-hmm.
So the point that I wanted to make about this dungeon of art was that he attempts to pick up a clock, and then immediately Friend starts being like, so you have 3 weeks. What is that? Tabernacle or whatever the fuck your name is. And then, they list off, it's like 21 day, and it goes through like every sort of differential of time to showcase. And he doesn't understand, right? He's like, I don't know what any of that means. He's like, what is a day? I assume I know what 21 days is, but minutes and stuff, I just know when the sun goes up and the sun goes down. That's all I know. Yeah. And then we immediately cut to him in that room talking with all the other Eternals, and they're like, you mean he's never seen a clock?
We have the voiceover kind of explaining stuff, that felt very much like when Neo meets the creator in the second Matrix movie. And then I got to thinking, and even in the notes here, I do.
Jason, go ahead.
Oh, was I like a
You're-
note?
Chucky got you with your mic got
me?
thrown off by the Chuck. He said, "Don't fuck with the Chuck," and you tried so hard.
To reiterate, there is that voiceover where it's explaining like kind of like the creator in the Matrix, and it got me thinking that Tabernacle's AI controlling human destiny is like kind of foreshadows movies like The Matrix in that way, and then I started thinking about the fact that like this
movie
is
definitely
kind
has
of
a
a
Matrix
Matrix.
Yeah,
like
it has like a major
like
Matrix vibe. Yeah,
Zed, Neo, kind of similar kind of names. He goes into a place he doesn't
if you were to like
understand
take
from-
the idea of Zardos and update it to be like a modern equivalent,
It's The Matrix.
in the 90s,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't know, I'll just push it so far beyond technology or whatever. Like the Wachowskis are like, let's just do Zardos, but like computers.
And instead of red diapers, we put them in fucking black leather dusters.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna look ridiculous to somebody. It already like 20 years removed. That
So
all
should
black
we-
leather look.
Should we
looks
talk
ridiculous.
about his little jaunt through the town when they're giving out the bread, or Tim?
When he's pulling the cart, yeah. So as they're making the bread, there's actually one weird part where before he starts carting away with Friend, Friend approaches the other people as they're like kneading the dough and putting it into one of the few actual sci-fi devices in the movie, which was this giant silver-plated circular thing, a hole in one end where you put the dough and it comes out baked bread on the
It
other.
reminded me of like almost like a synthetic womb vagina thing. Like, I kind of got that kind of the bread was being birthed.
Yeah,
the bread reminded me of a penis.
The thing the bread was coming out of reminded me of a steel vagina.
Well, the thing the bread was
the
coming
same
out of
page.
reminded me of a poopy butt.
A butthole.
Nothing but intellectuals around here.
We get so deep, and then we're like, poo poo butt, penis boobies.
Boner alert. But Friend comes up to them and starts speaking to them in an incoherent language that's not translated for us. And it's hard to say if that was for the benefit of showing that like they operate at a level that Zed doesn't understand. But it's also like Zed's not even really there. This is for the benefit of the audience that we're just watching them in their element.
He's in the background moving sacks
Yeah.
in the little cart.
Yeah.
And I think that like everything you said just now could be all true. Where it's meant for us to understand that, they operate in a weird way of talking, that maybe they're saying, an hour's worth of conversation in 3 minutes because they have the ability to connect psychically. So maybe everyone's always like, yeah, but it's actually like, that's like 20 sentences in one sentence rather than just one sentence kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's how I was reading it. But then I was also like, maybe he's also just flexing on Zed in the background, who is, he's going to see this and be like, what the fuck? I cannot understand what they're saying at all because they're talking in this weird psychic speak.
Yeah.
And then there's
voting.
there's the third option, which is that they just want to up the sci-fi even more to be like, whoa, crazy, right?
Well,
Yeah.
to your note there, like when they vote later, they all give different votes, which led me to believe
they
that
gesture very differently. Yeah.
that they weren't just, it wasn't just binary, it was like they all had opinions that counted as a vote, something that was meant to have the viewer be like, I can't wrap my head around even what that means.
Yeah.
And that weird like backwardsy kind of language was very much in that vein as well, where it's like, what the fuck was that? Do you think that was like a Tolkien kind of thing where it was written out, or was it just like, say some nonsense?
I don't know. Like I honestly think that I'm right, but I don't know if I am. Like it just like, seems like something that would make sense for like a supremely intelligent people, where like maybe he hasn't been there in a week, so he wants to get all the information out from the
Mhm.
in a very short period of time. So he's able to connect his mind with theirs, and he's still talking, but it's like so weird and fucked up that he's actually giving a week's worth of information in 4 minutes. 'Cause he's like, I gotta go take this bread to the apathetics, so I can't talk normally right now. I have to use my psychic speak.
Mhm.
But I
it-
I could be wrong. I don't know. That's just kind of how I read it as
Mhm. And it's a very unique point in the movie, and it's one of the things in this movie where it just kind of says the people that were making this wanted this specifically to be there for us to see. This wasn't just kind of we're like in Barbarella, they would put some things in there to make it seem as science fiction as possible without anything specific thought out necessarily.
yeah.
Whereas
Song with a man in it. You're like, oh, what does this mean? I don't know. You
Yeah.
figure it out.
yeah.
It means it smells like balls when you smoke it.
Your
But,
move, Snowflake.
And then after that, that's when Friend has Sean Connery pull the cart, which made me kind of wonder, what did they do when Sean Connery wasn't there?
They have horses. We've seen them.
Yeah. So this was intentionally like they're belittling him by letting him know that they think of him as a beast. That
So
they,
I think
he's
Sean Connery was like, like scared of him, but he was also like, I'm not going to tell you anything, but I do want you to tell me something. So I'll give you something in return. If I tell you stuff, you have to tell me stuff. And that guy's sort of middle ground was, okay, but you're a beast, so I'm going to use you as a beast of burden. You can pull my cart all day while I do my chores. It might take me longer, but I'm going to make sure that you understand that you're a beast and I'm not. And that's kind of like how they have horses. There are horses everywhere in that town.
Yeah.
He unstrapped a horse and strapped Sean Connery as a horse.
Is this the point where he goes through and meets the different groups of people? Like that's what's happening, right? He's like, I'm going to take you and show you.
Sean Connery is pulling him around as he's delivering the bread to everybody. So they go pick up the bread, and then they go to all the areas where he's literally like throwing bread at people.
Yeah.
You stinky fucks! You can't even bend over to get your own bread over
He
here.
also learns during this segment that like these people, they can't die forever. I think if you can die, but you'll be recreated.
Yeah, because even Friend admits that he's killed himself a few times out of boredom.
But you just get recreated. Like you can't die.
Oh, I actually wrote that line down because I thought it was really cool. He says, sorry. Damn, where is it? He's never seen a clock. What a fucking idiot is what I wrote down. No, that you're doomed to be old and nutty. I wrote that down too. Fuck, I thought I wrote it down. Maybe I didn't write it down.
Well, there's he meets the seniles, or the, what did you call them? The rebels?
They're called the renegades.
The renegades?
Yeah.
But you're destined to be senile in like this weird room. You can spout a little bit of information, but for the most part, you're crazy. That's when I got the Wizard of Oz vibe during the segment. The apathetics don't care. They kind of represent what nowadays we would see as people that are like just stuck on their phones, or don't. They just
go to work and they
sleep,
when they get home,
walk through life.
They watch TV and then they go to bed and then they wake up and they do it again. Yeah.
And then the bread is for the apathetics to just keep them apathetic, but also it seems a lot like if you don't feed them the bread, they could wake up, which also is very like metaphorical for like,
Well, they also call it
a
disease. They call the apathy a disease where it's running rampant through.
Yeah.
Which
all the vortexes,
yeah. So
but the wheat that the Brutals are forced to harvest is made into that bread, right? Like, which is also
but they also eat the bread. Like the rich people eat the bread too.
The rich people eat the bread.
Remember the scene where they all kiss it first?
Yeah.
It is like that's one thing that is not like goes without saying. There's not much that's 100% clear on this. That was one thing that I wasn't too sure if that was fully developed, was the concept of the bread, because a part of Zed's motivation for wanting to learn more and break into the vortex was that the exterminators were forced to get the Brutals to start harvesting bread, harvesting grain, and fill the head of Zardoz with grain.
And he was like, "Why?
Yeah, because
Why
we
don't
ate
you
meat."
want meat?"
Yeah.
Why doesn't anybody want to eat meat? They never mention meat at all in this whole movie. There's no animals except for the horses, really.
I mean, I
Yeah.
assume they eat human meat.
Yeah.
They probably eat human beings. Very
But yeah,
twisted.
but like very, very broadly, he just says, you did not eat bread. No, we ate meat.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I wasn't too sure if it was implying that they needed to make more bread than they could make with inside the vortex. And so they had to harvest grain from outside and bring it in.
Could be, yeah.
And they were saying that the apathy issue was spreading across all the vortexes. And that's one thing that like is not also 100% given in full detail is the nature of all the other vortexes. Like they just say that this one is vortex number 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
But they say that this is something that is spreading and it's only getting worse. But people like Consuela are kind of dismissing it. They want to maintain the balance no matter how bad this gets. Whereas May is recognizing that, don't bite me, is, sorry, my cat's wrestling my hand right now.
Yeah. That's what Sean Connery said to that woman. He grabbed her breast and she was like in an apathetic mode. He's like, "Don't bite me."
But May is saying that like they need to do this change because of the apathy. And so that's where like a lot of the conflict is coming from. So yeah, as far as where the bread comes to play with that, it wasn't, and perhaps by design, not 100% spoon-fed to us, not to make a pun of it, but it is kind of a catalyst of what's going on. That
so the way I read that was not that the apathy is being caused by the bread, but it's the only thing that the apathetic will eat. Or they have no sort of ability to cook or do anything really, so they just huck loaves of bread at them so they don't die, because they they're immortal, but they're like, if they die they'll just come back and then we gotta like
feed them again
over there again.
And they're not going to feed themselves.
Yeah, so we'll feed them the bare minimum, which is the loaves of our green bread, which we know that the green, Soylent Green, it's made out of people. The green bread is made out of people.
I made a note
green is
here.
such a usual color for bread too. Yeah,
it's true. I made a note here that was like, so this movie is about a world where sex is a mystery because God sees sex as evil, which isn't unlike Christian values. And then procreation is sort of the only reason to do sex, but they don't need to do it anymore because they never die, and they don't know why boners happen, and the Brutal can do it. So this is Flesh Gordon. This is Flesh Gordon we're watching.
Yeah.
There were so many times in this film that I thought I was going to turn into a full porno. Sorry, I just needed to say that, but it never really did until the next. You
needed to say that? I'm sorry.
The next scene where they try to give Sean Connery a boner by just showing him boobs and women's nude mud wrestling.
Yeah, I called this boner lessons.
that is
Boner alert.
But there was one thing that was kind of strange in that part where like we don't know how this happens, and like you really don't. Was kind of like my immediate reaction when kind of thinking about it, like, do you really not know? And it kind of matches up with where they were trying to catalog the information about cars, and they were complaining about how like, wait a minute, like you're not giving me all the information. And it kind of speaks to that they're being withheld information about how life is in order to maintain this balance of the vortex. That even though they do have this abundance of power, resources, and knowledge, there's very specific things being withheld from them.
But they also say that like erotic stimulation doesn't exist anymore. Within their world. So like without erotic stimulation, an erection can't really exist because erotic stimulation can mean 1 million different things. But if
You think
all
they still
erotic
try to jelk?
if all erotic stimulation no longer exists for an individual,
But no
then
gooning. Not a single no gooning, right?
hold on. Oh, shit.
Stardust.
He demands you stop.
No joking. Okay. Just
No joking.
make a note here. No joking. Joke.
Anyway, I think that like
you.
I don't think that they're saying that they don't understand how an erection comes about. I think that what they're saying is that like the things that would typically cause an erection in a biological being no longer exist. So
Yeah.
we need to figure out how to be able to create that in our own people if we ever want to procreate.
They haven't broached the idea yet at this point in the movie, though. They do shortly after, where they realize that biologically Zed is a mutant who is actually smarter than all of them. Like his brain function is higher, and they need to use him to further their species so
Well,
they can evolve.
He's not a mutant. Let's be
They say
clear.
mutants so many. They refer to them.
He's
they
not
start-
a mutant.
They stop referring to the
that's
brutals
what-
as brutals and
Okay.
start referring to them as mutants.
I know, but when you say
At this
mutant, it makes you think of like a super mutant from Fallout,
point.
or
That's
or
what
an
I was-
X-Man, or a teenage mutant Ninja Turtle. No, what he is a human being who has gone through a series of procreation that mutates his DNA, which is literally what procreation is. Every single time we have children, we mutate DNA to become better, basically.
Mhm.
And when you inbreed, that's stopping those mutations, so that's stemming them and making them bad.
Yeah.
They're not being like he's a mutant, he's got super mutant abilities. They're just saying like this is what would happen if we were able to keep procreating, is that we would become better in this way. He's basically just like what humanity is if they were allowed to continue to keep existing. Whereas these people are like, we just die and get pooped out into a diaper bag in the corner in the tabernacle, and then we come back again. We're not growing, we're not evolving, we're not mutating. You know?
Yeah.
So back to boner lessons. Boner alert.
They kind of also make a point that what stimulates Zed is not, any kind of
well, what we
fake
know for
imagery.
sure is that it's not tits being rubbed with soap on them, and it's
Yeah.
not mud wrestling. He doesn't like
Yeah.
those two things.
Yeah, it's
Very
it's
least.
not, and it's
I
not
like
mere,
those things.
it's not mere imagery, but like somebody physically there
Jason was
before him.
standing in his living room like Zardoz while the
I
rubbing was happening, and the must.
I should say I watched this whole movie at work.
Oh, so he was standing in his office. Yeah.
This is new work attire.
Yeah. Jason was wearing the
A boner.
He was wearing a boner. No, this is Jason at his workplace. They're like, Jason, what are you doing?
Boner alert.
And he said,
Come
someone's
for
trying
your-
to give me an erection, and I'm not going to do it.
It's time we reviewed your work lately.
Yeah, I'm fired. I got fired today for watching Zardoz.
In the office.
Look, the way my screens go, like this is one of those movies I couldn't put on my main giant screen because I was like, "There's nudity in this movie," but I've got a screen off to the side that, like, anyway, I doth protest too much. This is why we don't. This is why you
The
don't. Give
volume
your,
was cranked.
He calls that
Don't give your-
the naughty third one. He's like, the naughty third one. Where I can
it's the one
watch
that just has fucking hardcore porn on it the whole time.
Yeah.
That's why my coworkers will never see this podcast. They could be watching right now, though. Who knows?
Okay. All right. So I mean, I guess there's no way to get through the scene without it just being a big, giant, hilarious joke. But like, the point of it is that he does not find what they think to be the general stimulus or things that they find erotic to be erotic. he finds the idea of the person who's telling him, like, you know, like lecturing him basically, like he's like, no, you're the thing that makes me attractive. And then everybody in the room like laughs like it's a weird boner comedy from the 70s for a second.
I wrote a note that says, I think he likes Consuela, and I thought that he was gonna like advance on her and be like, now I've got a boner for you, Consuela. But maybe he did.
No, he's not that. Remember, he's very smart. He has mutated brain, like you said.
He's mutant.
And also, not to backtrack too much, but in the scene where they're examining his mind and they're showing the initial rape scene where he throws the net on the woman on the beach, and he says that like almost as if it was his edict by Zardoz that he was to take that woman.
Yeah.
And that like this is something that this lifestyle of violence and rape is something that is influenced onto them from Zardoz. That this is made a part of his culture. So,
but he's also been told by Zardoz that only specifics are allowed to breed. So
yeah,
I assume that means like either everyone else who's not allowed to breed doesn't breed,
yeah,
or if they do,
they get
either
killed.
they are killed or they kill the person that they impregnate, so that there's no child, right?
Yeah, to call the overpopulation.
Yeah.
And so like there is kind of an animalistic degree to that where it's a forced coupling that breeders would do with animals. So I mean, and that's not to excuse any of this kind of stuff, but in the context of the movie, it's explaining why he is the way he is, because there is an element of him trying to overturn that lifestyle, that he's trying to overturn this cycle of violence and rape in a way.
But there's also like there's a beginning to it that is born out of him wanting to still be that way, which is kind of disturbing in its own as well, right? Like the reason he wants to go inside of Zardoz and figure out what's going on is because he's like,
we're warriors. We need to go around and fuck on the beaches, just like the old days.
Like, he's going there because he doesn't want to be a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing so, the rest of the movie takes place, which is that his mind is opened in ways that,
goes through an enlightenment.
Yeah. He realizes that like, oh wait, I'm fucked up too. These people are fucked up, but I'm maybe even more fucked up, and that's scary to me.
Yeah.
Which I guess is the silver lining, like at the end, is that he has the realization. Because they keep calling him a monster and a brute and a brutalizer, an exterminator, and he is, and he's proud of it at first, and then slowly kind of erodes down to him just being like, oh no, I'm smarter than that now. And I mean, we're not even there yet, but like it gets to a point where he becomes so smart that he's maybe the smartest person in all the vortexes and the wastelands. Like he's like the smartest guy ever.
Yeah.
How about this line? We want to die. What's the trick? Death.
That's a good line.
It's a circle. It's a weird thing where in this universe, the ultimate thing you can do is die, but you can't die. Which is dark, but also like I kind of feel that like we all, our whole legacy is like we're gonna live our short lives, die, and within 2 generations your name will never be said or remembered. If you're an average, that's why you gotta go out and do some shit, like be a John Wilkes Booth or a or a Ted Bundy.
Thinking like I gotta shoot somebody important.
Yeah.
Well, to motivate and do things. Well,
if I shoot somebody important, then maybe somebody else will want to shoot somebody important, Tim.
That's called being an influencer these days.
Oh shit!
Oh my god! No, you just gotta touch it. Never mind.
That's
like the pipeline.
I mean, this is kind of relevant to what we're saying, is that like they fear Zed, right? Like the reason they don't want to continue the experiments, or at least whatever her name is, the one who is very like relaxed in your eyes.
Oh, May?
No, May is the one who's like, we need to figure out all of this. The other one, we need to
Consuela.
she's got very like sort of like her eyes are like perfectly level and like her
Yeah.
eyes never really go up or down. I guess it's
Very,
weird.
very stoic and emotionless. Yeah.
Her up actually. She looks very similar. She's like obviously an elderly woman now, but like 'cause she's very beautiful in this movie. And when I see her now, I'm like, still beautiful. You're still like a beautiful woman.
Oh,
So-
she's aged quite gracefully, and she actually has a lot of fond, happy things to say about this movie. That she thought it was like this very connecting to nature experience.
She was like,
We'll talk
"I'm the
about it
only
when
one
we
who
get
doesn't have my
there."
tits ripped out aggressively. And I appreciate
We'll
it.
talk. We'll talk about it when we get there. But the way they age her up at the end of the movie is fucking
Oh,
horrific.
Like,
But Luke,
Sean Connery
in
is
this-
the same for like 10 of those. And
Yeah.
Then, like, and
then
she's just,
suddenly
like,
he's
getting-
wearing
she's
a-
turning into a rotting pumpkin, and he's like, and then finally he like slumps over. He's like, "All right, don't do it now. You finally caught up to my old ass."
losing your innocence in this world is to be able to read and read books, and we find out that he's sort of been reading and learned a bunch of stuff. This is also a post-apocalyptic futurism, which is interesting, having them all be dumb, kind of. They can mind meld and they've got their computers, but to really read old text kind of sets you apart anyway. I don't think these people know how to read, like in the traditional sense.
No,
because
they touch a book and they're like, "Oh yes, I now know all the information." Yeah, but if they saw
Which
like
is-
a plaque in the wilderness or something, they'd be like, "I don't know what the fuck that. What is it? What do these weird carvings mean?" Yeah.
which is an odd similarity to like the way things are now. You know, nobody's really good at reading anymore, but we're all able to read these snippets.
I was never
of
good at reading.
information. Okay, well, that's dyslexia.
That's true, but I can still read. I do it every day.
Yeah, I can read too, but I like hate it. I can read small paragraphs of information and retain it. But I'm a
Jason,
visual
today,
learner.
I read maybe like 40 paragraphs out loud into a microphone today. It was crazy.
But how much of that did you retain besides that
None.
one thing you were stuck on, which will live with you in infamy for the rest of your time?
What I wanted to say, because I was getting to that, and then we kind of fell off with the eyeball talk and the aging thing, is that they fear Zed because what they see is a thing that they potentially have inside them that's locked away, right? Like that's what she's scared of at the very least. She's like, I am worried that his introduction into this world is going to unlock something in all of these people that is the brutalist. And then by the end of the movie, she is like fully embracing, like, I had to become you to hunt you, and now I love you. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think in terms of like classical, like character writing and even just sort of like real world experience, her sort of grading up against him in terms of her hatred for him was based in attraction. I think that's what it was supposed to be, or at least that's what the movie is supposed to be giving us, right? Is that like she's attracted to him because she doesn't really know why, and that's why she hates him, right? Like, she's like, "I fucking hate this guy."
that mystery kind of frightens her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also attracts her, and she's like, now we're gonna have boner session number 1. All right, so everybody sees it. Maybe that's why she made the dick so big, because she's like, his dick isn't this big. I'm gonna make him feel weird about how big the dick is that we have on the screen.
That's not what it looks like.
My penis is half that size, but twice as thick. Around.
They call me the tree stump.
They call me the pizza bagel.
The penis might here.
The Bagushi boys never complain.
Yeah.
But then we get to the second sort of like dinner sequence, which is
May kind of mind melds and finds out that Zed actually did kill Arthur at this point, which is kind of pivotal because May is the one that is trying to like further science. Consuela can never find this out because Consuela is like the old guard, like religious kind of character.
okay, but no, I don't think. I think we've shuffled a little bit here.
I mean, I'm just going through my notes.
The dinner is when Friend gets voted away. Let's talk about Friend.
Oh, okay, that's back a little bit. You're right.
And this part is kind of interesting because now Zed is there and everyone's like, oh, so now you're just like letting him serve food? Ugh.
Yeah, and doing the work of Friend when it's Friend's turn to serve the food.
Yeah.
And they're saying that's not fair anymore when everything is supposed to be balanced and equal. This isn't.
You're letting him serve cunt
Yeah. And he is.
like
He's
in a
serving,
sassy way.
he's
Potato.
serving cunty
Yes or
potatoes.
no?
Yes or no? You like potatoes, or you want me to just toss them on the floor?
I've got a ladle full of potatoes.
2 potatoes for you. 2 potatoes for you.
Just like
and-
3
flames.
potatoes for me.
But then they decide to have like a secondary vote, but they have to go to like another level of meditation,
Mhm.
which is, I'm like, okay, so they have different levels of meditation, I guess, where like their brains all connect. And he's like, no, I'm not going to connect to you. And then he starts
Oh,
yelling.
that's what I wrote a note that said, "What in the fuck is this second level shit?" And I just crossed it out because I was like, but this is what you're talking about."
I wrote a note saying every fucking incel white idiot watching the release trailer for the Ghosts of that new Ghosts of Tsushima game, like the second version or whatever, where they're all like, "Oh, they've gone woke," or like they're all like, and he's like, "I hate all women and procreation." And then he's like,
Low key, that game looks like it's going to be amazing because Ghost of Tsushima was amazing. Ghost of Toei, it's going to be a banger. That mountain that they showed in that
I
trailer.
mean, but the joke is that it's a guy who's yelling, "I hate women and I hate procreation." That's the joke. And then he goes, is unconscious because a bunch of women and gay men are like, like at his head. I'm like, okay, this would be a funny TikTok, right? If you put like the PlayStation and Xbox logos and Ubisoft logos on all those people's faces, and like someone being like, "I hate women," like dying. Like, we could probably do that. We could do that.
Just as an
Viral,
aside, it's so confusing as to what is considered like woke by the weird incels because
They
the
don't know what it
new
means. is
Assassin's
the real
Creed is gone woke because of a black samurai who is only a retainer. He's only a retainer. Why are you making him a samurai? And then you look at the stories told about him, and it's like, yeah, he was a retainer who was also samurai, but there's a woman main character too. It's like, fuck off, dude. Just
Wasn't he
You
also
gotta-
like a real person? Isn't that the
he
other
was
thing?
a real person.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
he was the black samurai of history.
And
He was
meanwhile-
Afro samurai.
Meanwhile,
That's a joke. I'm sorry, a bad joke. Bad joke.
But
No,
like,
but that's a rare Steve not woke
Yeah.
joke.
But I don't know. Whenever it comes to stuff like that, I always find it to be ridiculous because, like, it's a video game series where it's a simulation that they're doing in order to fight aliens. Like as far as
Listen,
the shell story of it all
Ezio,
goes, like,
right back
like,
to the
please.
first game, Ezio jumps off the top of a cathedral into a fucking pile of
Yeah.
straw.
Yeah, but in the new one, he'll jump off butt first onto a big old fucking dildo and be like, he'll be like, "Mamma mia!" and he'll love it.
It just
Yeah.
cuts
Whoa.
to that for some reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
If that
Oh,
happened,
whoa.
I would start playing Assassin's Creed. But no,
It's
I was
just ass in Creed.
I find that stuff to be so irritating, and that's why I don't really go on to too much online these days, only because it's,
Yeah.
it's always
You're
something.
smart, Tim. You're smarter than we are. We go on every
Yeah,
day.
we're-
I read a
Dumb
book
as
on the
hell.
subway every day. But yeah, as far as that scene goes, I was imagined that like was something constructed on like just purely like a stage space, and it's just merely performance art, and then they just took it as it was and put it into that scenery.
I feel like a
Um,
couple of moments in the movie are like that too, like the lights at the end when they're doing all the like the finger movement on his face and the projections and stuff. I'm like, this is like a weird interpretive art thing that like
Yeah,
would probably be fine on stage, but seeing it in a movie, I want a little, I want a little more glitter or something. I want some light
yeah,
to make it,
exactly.
you know, like because it just seems like a guy going, "Oh," while everyone's like me, and like the music is doing all the work, and you're like, "Can I have
Yeah.
a little bit of lighting here to."
Well, when you look at like Star Trek TOS, when there's like the angry psychic kids, and they just do the
Dun,
and then
dun, dun. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh," yeah.
So yeah, and like granted, we're talking about 1974. They didn't have the Tabernacle computer yet in reality, so they couldn't really make any too many sophisticated visuals. And whereas now, when there's some sci-fi where they rely too much on that, and there is no heart to the story, so I kind of accept that that depiction.
We should
Sorry?
on like on certain like visual science fiction directors sometimes, and like a guy like Zack Snyder, for example.
Mhm.
While I would never trust him with a Zardoz remake, I would absolutely trust him with a remake of this sequence. I think that he could probably figure out a way to make this sequence extremely visually cool and interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, a lot of movies are just like, whatever. That's not the point. The point is that he's, you know, being fucked over by all these mentalists or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you know, maybe have a little bit more there.
Mhm.
Because you know, there's tons of visually interesting stuff going on in this movie, and then when you get to a moment like that, I feel like they should do something experimental. They should use mirrors and light and like just try and like fuck with the camera as much as they can.
Oh yeah, like a great example of where you can see within the same storytelling universe two different storytellers using a convention a little differently to better effect would be Star Wars: A New Hope versus Empire, where two different directors make a very good use of the Force, where it's just simply Obi-Wan saying, "These aren't the droids you're looking for." Where you go over into Empire, where like now Vader's choking him through a camera feed.
Luke, and he's like, "What the fuck, Luke? Oh God!" Use the Force, Luke. Turn off that fucking computer, you pussy. I bet you could shoot it without it. Oh God,
Look,
Ben.
Zack Snyder already remade Zardoz. Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Frame for frame.
Funny enough, his original screenplay was called Zucker Punch.
That was all about Facebook, but anyway.
That was also the Social Network was also originally called the Zucker Punch.
Goodness.
Well, that was funny. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm not to shit on the scene too much because I think it works.
I like it too.
I think visually you could do something, and like, you know, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like gut chuckling at how goofy it was, and the second time I watched it, I'm like, oh, this is kind of fucked, but also it still looks like funny as fuck. Like it's still funny.
Yeah.
And they're like,
but it highlights the threat that the moment that somebody shows dissent alerts everybody, and they can be all persuaded to do something like this to one of their own.
But I mean, we've had that going throughout, right? With the other guy that they keep showing the trial of, who's like, no, all I said was that you shouldn't wear those pants when you're working out. They're not flattering to your hips or something. Like, I think that's what he said, right? That was what he said?
Yeah, you need cupping. You
verbatim.
need cupping.
And they're like, you attacked somebody psychically. And he's like, no, I didn't. It was constructive criticism. I just said she had a fat ass. And they're like, all right, 5 years.
They do the mind meld stuff to Friend. He dies, and then we get that random cut to Zed trying to like run away and escape, and then we get that whole like the periphery wall where he's like,
and he's like
trying
pressing
to
against the
mime
glass.
through.
Yeah,
and he literally does some mime shit. Luckily, they cut to the other side of it, and he's like pressed up against it.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, luckily we didn't get like a hilarious sound design where he's like, boom.
yeah, like future inspiration for Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Like rubbing his face on it. Like,
Zardoz isn't real. Zardoz is alive.
But yeah, Friend is now among the seniles or the renegades.
And I actually like the makeup work on Friend. Yeah.
I did. The reveal is pretty cool, and he's like, yeah, and you're like, oh, he's Harvey Two-Face over here, Harvey Dent,
Harvey Two-Face.
My name's Harvey Two-Face, and I got.
But that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about earlier.
For the price of one.
Losing your innocence is to know knowledge, basically, in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's also like in a weird sense is like with age comes wisdom, and in this world, age is forced upon you in the form of punishment, and you do become wiser as you get older. And he's like, I've committed so many crimes, and I've blown my fucking brains out God knows how many times. Every time I do that, they force another decade on me. But it seemed like he wasn't old enough to become old, and they like forced him into like, no, we're now all putting 5 to 5 to 5 years on you at once, but like the the center only half thing is like
you'll get 50 years, no less.
Nobody else has that though. Like there's not other people with half age, half like youth being like, and then someone's like, boner alert, like on the other side, like no one's doing that. So like it seems like a move.
Boner alert.
But yeah, I don't know. And like you said, Tim, earlier, it's like you have this sort of like senility that is there on the surface, but you have those moments where you can get the clarity. And like, I made the joke of Harvey Dent, but like that's basically what he's like, right? Where he's like, I hate the Batman. I just want the Batman dead. And then he's like, oh, but also I love Gotham. It's my favorite city.
Bruce Wayne's my best pal.
But yeah, essentially forcing like a form of dementia on their own citizens as a punishment and imprisonment.
Which I think even back then everybody would agree is like, a lot of the times when you see somebody fall to that sort of like descent is it's horrifying, but we do our best to deal with it, and it can be hilarious, but like not for the individual. It's hilarious for us seeing the individual, and like when they have a moment of clarity to tell them about it and they think it's funny, you're like, okay, it's fine that we're laughing at this, but at the same time it's never really fine. It's just like a crazy deterioration of like mental stability that's frightening and fucked up.
Well, yeah, like a mental lapse like that is just like a moment that you're essentially not conscious and kind of not alive. And that's one thing that is somewhat emphasized in this, is that they're part of the be begging to die is that like this is somewhat in the perspective of this movie, a mercy for those that have been forced into that state of constant dementia without release. That like this is in what, even though these supposed enlightened immortals think this is the most humanitarian means of managing their renegades, it actually is a cruel and unusual punishment.
To that same idea, the Brutals wanted to be hunters, but Zardoz comes along and he's like, you have to farm wheat. Figure it out, you fucking weird beastmans.
And like they're farming just by poking sticks in the ground, and that's about it. Yeah. So like
they must be growing something, because they have the grain yield for Zardos's big mouth every season or whatever.
The grain yield for the mouth sounds like a euphemism for something, but but anyway.
There is a giant pivotal moment that happens when Zed is in the tabernacle looking at the books. The AI that controls the vortex and begins to unravel the power dynamics, keeping the Eternals in control. It's revealed to him by Arthur that this book is the thing, that caused you to be here. And he's like, no, I will not remember this book. And he finally remembers it. And it's The Wizard of Oz. And guess what happens? They cover up enough of the letters that ZAR.
This is the rare example of a 1970s movie being like, maybe they're too dumb. Maybe we have to actually do this.
ZARD is the end of wizard, and OZ is Oz.
He's holding it, and then like a hand comes and covers one part, and then like a weird third hand comes that doesn't make sense. You're like, what the?
Well, I tell you, after I saw this movie and then I went to my father to talk about it, and he's like, that was a pretty dumb reveal, right? It's like, yeah, it was fairly kind of silly. That they could have just shown the book Wizard of Oz and him reacting like, oh, okay, of course. But then like,
I'll tell you a little anecdote from yesterday afternoon or earlier today. I can't remember what it was.
This is Jason on the toilet watching Zardoz on his phone, like, oh god.
A day-old anecdote.
I messaged Steve. I'll bring up the conversation. In fact, I'll tell you all about it. I bring up the fact. This is before I know any of this, and me and Steve are talking on Facebook. The Zardos world of it all, and basically, what ends up happening is I'm like, Zardoz. It's like this movie's kind of like The Wizard of Oz, and Steve's like, yeah. Zard Oz, and I'm like, haha, what a ridiculous thing to say. And then fast forward to the next day, and I finished the movie, and he basically said he's like, yeah, I think
I think what you said was Bizardoz.
Yeah, Bizardoz. Yeah.
Because I think Jason thought I was just doing a play on words, being like, yes, what else can I Bizardoz? And I was being like, he doesn't know yet, but
we'll get there.
I can't find it now, but yeah, that's essentially what happened. So you're right. Literally two hands.
Let him finish the movie first,
and a third hand comes down to cover that all up. And
in the Zack Snyder version of this movie, he would be running through the library, and the whole library would blow up, and a half book would land next to his head, and it would be completely burnt away except for Zardoz. Yeah, that's the Zack Snyder version.
Listen, I'm smart, but this one
I know,
got away
Jason,
from me.
You are smart to the point that I was scared that if I gave too much information in my response, that it might spoil it for you. So I was like, I'm just gonna say Zard.
Bizardoz.
Yeah.
That and Bizardoz sounds like the Blizzard of Oz, which is a great album.
Which is a great album. I've got it on vinyl because I'm a hipster.
But that is also a part of what he's withholding from the Immortals, and specifically May and Consuela.
Consuela finds him and May in like a little like cuddle puddle, and she accuses May of bestiality. Speaking of, look at this, sweetie.
Yes. What you doing?
Nope,
Sam?
not speaking of. In fact, don't.
No,
evil.
never that. No. My God, no.
Looks like he can fight back, and then I wrote the Wizard of Rape. So,
oh my God,
I'm sorry.
D&D banished rape wizards a long time ago. You're not allowed to play as one anymore.
That was something that existed. That's fucked.
No, I'm just joking, but it's the fact that you said it. I hope that they did that.
You're like the Wizard of Loneliness or whatever from that Nathan For You episode where he's with that private investigator.
I don't watch that show because it makes me uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable in the best way. May thinks he's the liberator. Zed is destined to liberate everybody, which isn't untrue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's not destined to liberate everybody. She's destined to breed a new generation of better beings, an amalgamation of what they've learned over the countless decades and hundreds of years of being alive and regenerating over and over again with the Brutals, the people in the wastelands.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie does not have a happy ending, really. No.
It's a lot of mixed feelings. And as things continue to devolve after, and essentially at the point that Friend is made into an elderly person as a renegade, things start to really go out of balance, and there's the one member of the Immortals who's like a singing person who kind of calls into order and concert.
Never wears a shirt.
Yeah. And there is like an element to her where she has almost a tad foresight, but it's never really fully explained, that she just perhaps intuitive as to what's going to come.
Yeah, but it also seems like she's sort of like psychically connecting with him in order to give him the ability to see a little bit further as well, right? Like,
yeah, that like what is happening as far as the breaking down of their society is kind of long coming. That this is kind of, it has to happen at this point.
Which, like, kind of begs the question of is she able to cut herself off from everybody else because she's clearly not been aged a whole shitload to the point that she's about to become one of the renegade old people. But she's always there. Like every time he's having to contemplate something, she's always kind of there, either whether it be like in his psyche or just around to be like, yeah. And then she's the one who literally dies first. She gets shot right in the neck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's revealed that Zed was genetically manipulated by Arthur Frayne to destroy the stagnant society of the Eternals. Zed represents the evolution of change. And then what you guys are talking about there, Zed exposes the Eternals to the concept of mortality. This knowledge divides the Eternals, leading to chaos and the breakdown of their utopia. And then the note that I wrote is the scene where they attack Zed and beat on him, and he just fucking throws flour at them and then bounces, I thought was...
And the
like,
computer's like, danger, flour, danger, flour.
Flour in my circuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just think it's so weird. And then
That doesn't happen, by the way. It just is funny because like it cuts from that to him being like, danger, you are getting too close to the force field or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's an overlap of the flour and him being like, danger. I'm like, danger? Flour? What do you mean danger flour? What's gonna happen?
And it could be said that this film is intended to be a cautionary tale about the dangers
Jason,
of
did you already say that he does his like crazy military like hand gestures to be like
No, but
he
you're
does like
right.
he does so many to the point that I'm like, what the fuck complicated orders is he giving?
Yeah.
He's
like-
Mac from It's Always Sunny doing his fucking kung fu moves.
I mean, you must have to if you wear a big rock helmet with no mouth hole in it. You wouldn't be able to hear each other when you're on the
And they're-
battlefield.
And their signal back, the other exterminators outside of the vortex, is just a flare. So do they actually see everything that he's doing, or like from that far away, does it just look like wild flailing? And it's like,
So I assume because they wear the rock helmets, right?
yeah,
No sound gets out of that. No
Yeah.
sound goes into that. When you're on the battlefield, it's like all you hear is, and you hear, and you just have the eyes, and you go and you kill somebody, and then you know there's no other sound in there. You're just like, you know,
like when you're
sort of like
wearing those terrible masks for Halloween, you're like, yeah, trick or treat, and just
It's even worse than that. It's like you're in like a sensory deprivation helmet that like it cuts you off from everything you're doing except for the visual.
Oh, the part when Sean Connery's wearing that helmet and running through the burnt down library, it looks like he's about to topple over from the weight of it at any moment.
It looks heavy, yeah.
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 Do you guys find
Um,
it intimidating? Because I do.
It's
The mask?
if I saw somebody running, I mean, if I saw anybody running at me with a gun, that would be scary anyway. But
Well, the
if
fact
I-
that the mask has two sides of the same face was like something that took me a second to wrap my head around. That's
Yeah.
interesting
Mhm.
idea as well. But yes, if somebody's running at you with a gun,
If somebody's
get this
running at
gun
you,
back-
hairy as fuck, in a
Yeah.
stone
hairy.
helmet covered in blood with a red bikini
Chiseled.
on and a
chiseled
gun.
or
Yeah.
granite,
Wearing
1970s
only-
ripped too, so
Yeah.
you know he's strong.
and wearing only ammo belts too. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Especially if you then add a horse into the equation where he's on the horse.
That's a lot of chafing. There's no baby powder in the future. But anyway.
I just wanted to get this notion out. The film was intended to be a cautionary tale about the dangers of removing death from human experience, challenging the belief that immortality is desirable, which is sort of why everything falls apart. Because once they realize that like they can die, all they want to do is die.
Mhm.
As humans in this existence, we love vampires because vampires can live forever. But what that means
I
is you
think
can't
the
ever
only
eat
people who
food
really
again.
kind of like romanticize the idea of immortality are people who have a really good life already, right? Like
Yeah.
if your life is not great, you're not thinking about like, imagine this, but
Imagine if
like
I could
a
live forever
1,000 years of this.
as a sludge man underneath the bridge of eternity.
You know, I love being a sludge man so much. I would do this for 100,000 years over here.
But imagine you literally live forever. You're never decapitated. As we know, that's how you end somebody that is immortal. But you see the fucking
That's all my dreams.
sun,
end, at least.
red planet. You see the sun, red dwarf. You
Mhm.
see the you see the singularity, and you
Mhm.
see the fucking event horizon of a black hole, and you
Yeah.
watch yourself get ripped into. You see the past and the future at the
You're
same
immortal,
time.
so all your little things would come back together, and then you'd be like frozen in space trying to breathe, like
Yeah.
your tabernacle bag is reforming in the orbit of Pluto.
Doctor, I've got a rash in my tabernacle bag.
Oh God! Hold on, let me get my
Second opinion.
You're gonna need a second opinion on that, and I really don't know who I can get in here. But hold on, I think
Zardoz speaks.
Uh-oh.
oh, shit.
Boner alert.
Oh boy, boy. I would imagine that like the kind of what they were implying in this movie is that if it's just endless without purpose and nothing's really happening, that like what is retained of your individuality
I
and
wanted to
what
ask
makes you
you
distinct
guys-
kind of goes away.
I wanted to ask you guys as a sort of one of these bad boys. How long has do you get a sense of how long the society has existed? Because like what has it been 100 years? Has it been 1,000 years? Do the people
They tell you the
outside the
year.
vortex?
They
No,
they
I
do-
know, but like,
they
do
do
the
say
people outside the vortex just like die? Like, do the brutals outside the vortex just like live regular 180-year lives? Like, this is something I couldn't really nail
Sorry.
down. I wanted to ask you guys about.
Well, I think in 1974 terms, the idea of 300 years in the future really feels like forever. And sometimes when people come up with sci-fi concepts and they try to throw something into the future in order to detach from a contemporary mindset, it's sometimes difficult to really come up with a firm date that makes sense, that would not age poorly. Because like when they did, Blade Runner, that movie takes place in 2019.
2019.
Yeah. So, but like back in 79 or 1980 when that came out, that felt like forever from now. And so it's not. I would say, from my standpoint, when they say something like 300 years in the future, is their way of saying it's a far enough time from now where a lot of your contemporary perspectives are lost. And
Right.
and
If you look at Star Wars, it's in the past, and if you look at Dune, it's in the year 10,000.
when you start getting into Warhammer numbers
Or
kind of thing.
Warhammer, yeah.
So for me, I prefer when they just say indeterminate.
Yeah.
In the future, like I don't
Like,
need
like,
I don't
in-
need a date. Like who gives a fuck about it?
Exactly.
And we're now standing on the top of the Obama.
Well,
who,
The reason I ask
fuck?
this is because the reason why they're so croaking for death, the reason we're like, we have to get out of this, is because they've been doing it since the 70s. Like around the 70s is when they were gained immortality. It's been a couple hundred years, and they're like, I'm
Yeah.
bored. We live
Yeah.
this weird, like elitist,
I think in the
existence,
in
and
the
we
terms of-
need this too much.
in the terms of this movie, they wanted it to be so that like within one generation, the people made it or whatever, right? Like the human beings that remember our time as like a vague memory were still there, so they could be like like they're at the fucking Overlook Hotel on New Year's Eve or whatever, and you're like, okay,
Yeah, it's New Year's Eve here forever.
yeah,
It's so far through that they're Gen Z with a little 2 at the top.
yeah.
The second,
And
the
you know
second
that like a
iteration of
Gen Z New Year's Eve party is not going to be like everybody
No.
put a tuxedo on and go to New York.
It's gonna be Brett Summer 3, buddy.
Yeah, everybody's like, we got a Hawk Tua cake.
Oh, please.
Everybody spit on it.
But no, like exactly to your point, Steve, where it doesn't matter in a exact sense, but that it's detached from right now, and that's all that matters. Is that you forget about right now and you get absorbed into this, and like the Matrix as well did a point of saying like we think it's actually more like this tape, but we really don't know. and therefore it doesn't matter. We're in this world is the most important thing.
And
The Matrix
is
goes
like
hyper religious towards the end though. Like
but
it
the Matrix is
Messiah's
also
Neo
like
and it,
the Matrix is also a thing where they're like, we're not going to actually like stamp a time because
Yeah.
whatever the time after that is whatever.
Yeah.
But they're like, the reality in which you live in the Matrix is 1999 because that was the idealized version of human existence at the time.
Mhm.
An idea that, you know, as the 2000s went on, I was like, that's silly. And now I'm in 2024 and I'm like, the Wachowskis maybe were fucking
There were
right.
several versions of 1999 too, based on that lore, where there was a 99 where everything was too perfect and everybody was like, this isn't right. So the creator had to be
It
like,
was a
"Oh,
time
please,
before The
God."
Rock showed up to show us
Yeah.
how movies were meant to be made. And
Nintendo 64 wasn't that bad looking back
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
we only had one
Terrible.
Smash Brothers at that point. It was good. Times
It was
were
good enough.
Yeah.
I think PlayStation 1's a better.
Pierce Brosnan was still James Bond.
Listen, let's talk about the fact that Zed, it's revealed that his sweat wakes up the apathetics, and also he's able to bring death to the renegades.
How did you guys feel about those boys kissing? I was loving it. I was like, whoa, two boys kissing. This is
I
great.
love to see boys kiss in a 70s movie because it's progressive.
Yeah, I appreciate that approach to a lot of androgyny and metrosexuality.
Well-
that like they just kind of made it non-specific in many ways.
Speaking of, how about they're sneaking Zed out of there?
Hey, hold on.
Like,
did you
this
say
is just my bride.
Wait, did you say metrosexuality?
Would,
Yeah,
would that
remember
be somewhat,
metrosexuality?
would that be incorrect to say now?
I think that if two guys are kissing, that's just
That's just
homosexuality.
gay.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
No, but metrosexuality was a thing in the.
Oh,
early
I meant more
2000s.
so in
Oh,
the
you mean
aspect
when
of
the guy
like
had that guy at the party had his nipples out, and he's like, "Let's have a serious conversation here." And everyone's like, "Put your nipples
I'm a
away, and then maybe we'll talk about it."
metrosexual.
You metrosexual.
My name's Liberace, and I'm a metrosexual.
but more so that like they weren't too focused on, you know, are you a boy, are you a girl, or anything like that. They weren't too focused on anything like that, and that
Yeah, but
it-
Tim,
to see two guys kiss was not a big deal.
you're glossing over something very specific that happens within this like sequence, where friend who's gotten his powers of humanity back. I think it might have actually been Arthur. Anyway, they dress our boy Zed up in just like a dress, full mustache.
Wedding
no,
dress.
he's
is-
Clark
It's
Kent's-
it's a wedding dress.
It's a wedding
A
dress.
wedding dress. He
And that
Clark
was
Kent
to
his way through that
welcome-
whole thing. I haven't. There were a couple of times I laughed out loud and laughed hard, but that moment he's got a goofy look on his face, like I don't know. He's got a
Oh.
mustache, and everybody looking at him cannot see that it's clearly the brutal. And he just skirts by
I
everybody.
mean,
in
he's never
wedding
seen a
dress.
wedding dress, so he's like, "What? What's weird about this? I don't understand why everyone's laughing and pointing at me.
They're not though.
Am I
That's
not
the
supposed
point
to be
I'm trying
wearing
to
this
make.
or what?"
They
My accent's
sneak him
not that
out of
weird.
there in a dress, and nobody recognizes that this fucking
This
6
must be
foot
some
tall
sort
man.
of jester uniform. Is this a jester uniform? Or...
It's actually bizarrely the most clothed we see him in this
Yeah.
movie.
This is also the
only
point
his
of the-
face is showing his tiny little hairy face poking out.
This is the point of the story where I talked about this with my first theory, but I wrote. I just know Sean Connery.
Going a little longer than we usually do. I usually
You're
pee
right.
at this point.
We started late. I'll tell you about it, Tim. I just know Sean Connery read the scripts and saw how much tit he touches and took it based on that. And then he was like, I have to wear what?
Because I don't even think he has too many lines while wearing that dress either. Like he is like mortified in silence for
Yeah.
Sean Connery.
He just has a goofy look on his face. Then he just learns everything everywhere all at once for too long,
Mhm.
which was a scene that I was like, well, actually, no, that wasn't even the scene that I was frustrated. That was actually a cool sequence
Mhm.
where he's learning he's basically just learning everything from May and Consuela.
Mhm.
Because at this point in the movie, as the vortex collapses, Consuela and May, once enemies, join forces with Zed. The remaining Eternals are either liberated or choose death. That's sort of
Yeah.
the final showdown element.
Actually,
Flashback
I think
Matrix.
during this time is the only point in the movie where we see within the vortex at night.
Yeah. That's
I
actually,
don't recall seeing nighttime any other time in the vortex during the movie.
They also
Yeah.
fast forward through that quick because when the Brutals finally come in, it's like morning. I feel like maybe.
Yeah, like early dawn or something like that. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Then we get the whole sequence you guys were talking about earlier with the crystals.
Oh, my favorite part when they realize
revealed that they have
are
crystals
unlimited
installed.
storage capacity hard
Yes.
drives.
Here's exactly what I wrote for the viewers at home. They all have crystals installed in their heads like some kind of Final Fantasy.
All the viewers at home, you hear that? He wrote that for you. That's just for you guys.
For all my
Also, for
final
the viewers of
fans.
Zardos, it's so that they can have unlimited storage of information in their brains.
It's true.
Mhm. But it's also a means of connecting them all.
Yeah.
We get that sequence where he meets Arthur as like a sprightly magician. And they quote T.S. Eliot at each other for like 25 minutes is what it
I gotta
felt like.
say, I watched this movie twice within, like 4 years or whatever. And when he's going through the mannequin room, like the wax figures, like they're all wax figures. And I'm like, I know one of these is gonna jump out, but I don't remember which one. And I also don't know for sure that I'm right. Maybe he'll get to an end. It'll be an obvious one that's like, like a fucking Dick Van Dyke in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or something, like you're like, well, okay, that's obviously not a mannequin. But the one that like taps him on the shoulder, I'm like, holy shit, that's a good mannequin. And then he rips off a fake lower part of his face that made him look 10 times more like a mannequin. And it was just his eyes that were real, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I was kind of blown away for a second time because I saw that the first time and I was like, that's a great gag. And then I saw it the second time and I was like, that's not just a good gag. It's like a really good, interesting, and fun idea to confuse the audience. And like, we're on board at that point with this guy who doesn't know which one of these people is real.
It's and kind of put it into a context of at that time with the method of filmmaking where like, you don't have, we're in digital now, like the means of multiple takes and the resources for practical effects to be reusable. And so to really execute that and it's to effect and it works is like kind of remarkable in a sense. That,
when I see something like
must
that,
have taken
though, I'm
some
like,
planning.
yeah, where I'm like, if they didn't do that on the first try, they had to reset that like over and over. Yeah. And like, I don't know if you guys have ever worked on like a movie set before where something doesn't go right the first time and you're like, fuck.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
The worst. It's the worst. Like to the point that you're like, fuck it. I don't even want that in there anymore. Like, I don't want to have to sit here.
I worked on a short film as like just like a hurry up and wait person to like set up.
Oh, a bearded man on the set. Yeah, you were one of the bearded men on the set.
I was one of the bearded men. No, but it like if they messed up a shot, they have to reset that whole shit. And that's why I learned that I don't want to like get into like being on set and filmmaking because it's thankless and you're not paid when you're early in the biz, but also there's no glamour to making movies, really.
If you're the person with the vision, there is, especially when you see something happen where you're like, I want this exact thing to, and like this is, or if it somehow exceeds your expectations, you're like, holy fuck, that's even better than what I thought. But when it's something like that, where it's like a quick gag of like ripping a thing off, like I can't imagine like the Freddy Krueger movies and shit. Like I really don't think that anybody working on a Freddy Krueger movie is like, I've been dreaming about making a Freddy Krueger movie since the day I was dreamed of being born.
He killed me in those dreams, and then I'm destined to make these fucking movies forever. And also think about the movies, the big like blockbusters that they have actors like. That are method actors and they go into the wilderness and like the Revenant, like they go and do the things.
There was an interview with some of the original cast of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they were talking with people about making fun of bad cheesy B movies. and you know, were the ones that you hate. And I forget which one of them said it, but he said, like, we don't really hate these movies. We're kind of awestruck that they managed to be made at all under the circumstances, and that like this is really tough work that even the worst movie takes effort to bring to the screen.
That was something that, like, for a long time, Tim, especially you, I was like so interested because I love watching those movies.
Mhm.
And I thought there was like a way to do it with friends that we could film it and like just watch them. And then you see things like Red Letter Media and you're like, oh, well, it's already been done.
Mhm.
But I still believe that we could. The three of us here right now.
Red Letter
could.
Media is in the DNA of this. The fact that I have little things that I do, I would love for us.
I'm not even talking about them so much as
I would
I'm talking about us
with storyline.
It would be fun just to do that anyway. And there's always going to be the you know, whether it's you view them as trailblazers or people that just kept the torch lit for any of these kinds of interpretations. Like Weird Al Yankovic, though he doesn't do parodies anymore because the amount of time it takes for someone to do a parody of a new song is like milliseconds these days.
Yeah.
But people will still do it, and he's happy that heritage is carried on. Like I'd be totally into just watching a movie and laughing at it.
It's
and
not
finding
even like
fun.
I don't want to do it because it already exists. It's just that like I already do it all the time
Mhm.
with, you know, like one specific person.
Mhm.
That we just, and it's legitimately because we love watching them. Like we don't do it because we're like, let's punish ourselves. Like we sit down and we're like, let's find the shittiest rated thing that we can watch just because it's fun sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Sit there and like wreak havoc on something.
In my early 20s, I did a quest of watching the bottom 100 worst rated movies in IMDb, and
I have a fantasy of having that be a month.
oh, just like a cheesy movie month.
The thing is, Jason, it's not going to be fun to talk about them. It's going to be fun to watch them together. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You have to realize that part. Like you need to watch them together. You can't just like be like, let's watch this shitty movie at our own individual homes.
Yeah, sometimes talking about Baby Geniuses 2 is not really all that fun.
Well, even like the 4 movies we did this month have that element of like, I wish that I had been watching these movies with the guest and Steve for each week, because they were all kind of slogs to get through. There are a lot of moments where, in retrospect, you recognize that they're good movies when you put them all together. And this has happened a lot of times on the show where I watch a bad movie and then through talking, I up my rating or lower my rating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is an element that that needs to be discussed about that. However, let me get through some more of this. Let's get to the end of this movie.
I thought we were at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Consuela tracks Zed down, but cannot kill Zed. Classic God situation where he's everywhere and nowhere. Zed turns out to be a God killer. Zed finally puts on normal clothes. And then when
that happens, you hear somebody say, "Zed's dead, baby." Dead. And they roll off on a horse.
But then we get a final moment where Zed goes into like a mirror world, and that mirror world reminded me of like a Final Fantasy end dungeon.
I know tabernacle. He's in the tabernacle.
The tabernacle. He's tabernacle.
No, a tabernacle is like a religious structure, usually in the Jewish faith. I believe
you're right.
Yeah, but that French curse is reference to that, though.
Is it really?
Yeah,
oh God.
It's like saying God damn, but worse.
French people
it's like
are anti-Semitic?
bollocks
Holy shit. Never thought that.
It's like saying goddamn fucking shit all at the same time.
Tabernacle is way worse now.
Tabernacle.
Yeah, stop saying it. It's anti-Semitic.
But I did like how it did feel very like this movie is the most Final Fantasy shit. But then
when he
picks
up
he's
that giant sword at the end, he's like
they start playing Blitzball.
Ding, ding.
Yeah, the whole Blitzball sequence during this movie was crazy. Yeah. He plays a card game for a while.
The fire when that big fireball comes out of the castle at the end, then you hear like run. Dun, and the tabernacle is in a full human form, and it's a crystal being. Like
You get it, man. You get it.
That's what would
He-
happen if this was if it was Final Fantasy, right?
So he shoots himself. The vortexers start destroying the art. There was a cool backwards effect where he's walking through, sort of like parting the Red Sea almost, but they did like a reverse thing where they're jumping back up onto the ledges that they're on. I thought that was an interesting, fun part.
Mhm.
He's basically the Messiah, which is pretty, it's laid on pretty thick. Zed brings the crystal to the old man. Zed was created to buck the system, force the hand of evolution. The oldest man dies, and the Zardoz head shows up.
May I have a quick theory sting?
Oh, you got it, buddy.
So my kind of theory for that little part where he's able to have this kind of manipulation of time and space and guiding them out of that scene before they could be attacked is that, like, in his experience with the tabernacle, that he's been given a shared portion of the psychic powers that the other immortals have, which kind of makes him more or less their equal at that point. It was my interpretation of that his ability to do that, combined with the fact that he is an outsider, which is what May is trying to draw out from this higher being element.
I thought that the Zardoz head showing up was the plan coming to fruition. All of my plans are put in place, and everything here is meant to be as it is.
Yeah.
And he shows up and he's like, watch me juggle this ball.
I've been pulling the strings. I'm the puppet master.
He's the puppet master, yeah. and,
Especially
like,
with that mannequin comparison, that like he's secretly not a mannequin, but he is one of the people manipulating all this.
he's like, they birthed me out of my birthing bag several weeks ago, and I've been waiting here for you ever since. I even made a special hole to eat the green bread through. Yummy, yummy, yummy.
That's verbatim from the movie.
Yeah, and I think that this is his moment to tell Zardoz, or Zed, I guess. I mean, he is Zardoz at this point. He becomes Zardoz by the end. Like,
I am Zed. Zed stands for Zardoz, and Zardoz I am an executioner for. And blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, Zardoz
now
is
turned
chosen.
Irish.
In the final
Had a good
scene,
Scottish going, and it went to Irish for some reason.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Yeah.
in the final scenes, Zed and Consuela leave the dying vortex, symbolizing the rebirth of humanity. The final shot is of their skeletons as life and death are restored. The ending was deliberately ambiguous, reflecting Borman's belief that humanity's future is uncertain, but evolution and change are inevitable. So we get that final scene where the Brutals come and they kill everybody indiscriminately. They die in all these brutal ways, but then you just have Consuela and Zed just leave, and they go into a cave, and we get this like really interesting like.
They go into the crushed head of Zardoz.
Yeah.
It's not a cave, man. It's the mouth. It's the mouth of Zardoz. They live inside Zardoz's head.
But we see this unique. I've never seen anything like this in a film where they sit down and they're just sitting there. Well, she's pregnant immediately, so there's like this passage of time. We see the kid grow up, they age, and they just age into dust. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, where the makeup for them aging is like offensive almost.
It's of its time.
Offensively bad.
His makeup doesn't change for like at least 3 transitions, and then his hair gets like slightly gray on the side, and
Slightly
she's
gray,
like,
but she's
like melting, like, and then like his gets grayer on the top, and then the next one she looks crazy, and then he has long hair, and then they both start to slump over it, and then they turn into skeletons.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
the last 2 are the only 2 that he has makeup on.
He's like, I'm not sitting in a chair for this long. But what? You're going to make my crow's feet deeper? The crows have come for me.
Whereas, like, immediately she looks like the woman giving the medicine to Falcor, a never-ending story.
I'd like to do for the first time on this show in season 3, very early, and I'm going to having written notes that I cross off as we go is the new way that
having
I'm going
written
to
a
do
new
it.
script for Zardos. I'm going to read the entire
Here we
new
go.
script for Zardos
You
now.
guys have a couple hours. But what I'm going to do is now that we finish the movie, there's no end credits. The credits don't exist. Like I said earlier, there was 90 seconds left. I'm like, yeah, they're at the beginning. But I'm going to rip these notes up to symbolize
He's
the
done.
end.
Whoa, it's a waste of printer paper and ink.
No, I'm going to recycle it.
Okay, well, why'd you print them out in the first place? You don't have a phone or like a.
No, it was so much easier. Like listen to this episode back, and you'll see how much more coherent it is.
Get a notebook and write your fucking notes down. Then, if you're gonna do that shit, at least you're doing 2 things before you rip it up.
Yeah, but it's still going to be ripped up. But instead of me looking over here at my notes and I can barely read them, I get tripped up. Listen, this has been the best. This has been the best that I've ever done.
Around.
Thank you. I was going to actually ask you to do that sting for that moment, but that's that. That's the movie.
Jason, chill for a second.
Going.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this has been one of my favorite episodes because
Tap your mic or something. It sounds. Am I wrong, Tim?
It does sound a little muffled.
Sounds like he's underwater.
right now.
Now it's better.
Now it's
Now
good.
it's
Okay.
better.
This has been one of my favorite episodes just because I have my notes printed out. I think this is going to be the way that I do it going forward. But at this point in the show, we're going to have to talk about our Home Alone of it all.
Oh, are you talking about the Home Alone of it all with the kid from the Home Alone of it all movies?
We're talking about it.
What do you think the Home Alone of it all?
the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone of
I
it all
really gotta
happens?
know.
When is the Home Alone of it all?
What is the Home Alone of it all?
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
Merry Christmas, you guys.
Yeah. I still like that every single episode we have a Christmas song.
It wouldn't be the same without it.
The original song was so fucking good, though.
It was, but we kept getting striked by Russia. Russia was going in for
Sure,
drone
Russia hates
strike every
that
time we
song.
fucking played it.
So this is the segment of the show. Tim, you know, but I have to tell everybody if they're uninitiated. The Home Alone of it all is basically the idea that every movie has a moment that you're there to see, and it's derived from the movie Home Alone. Excuse me, where we wanted to see
Mom!
Kevin McAllister slap down the blueprint to set up a Saw-like torture plan for Harry and Merv to come through the house and
Also, it's Marv,
tortured.
not Merv. I don't know why he always says
Marv.
Merv.
You're right. But when I was a kid, I may as well have just fast forwarded through to the part where Harry and Marv get tortured like rodents in a torture plan.
A torture trap where they're like, there's cheese, but there's buzzsaws and hot irons.
But the cheese is creating despair and murder.
Mhm.
At any rate, I explain it better for people who are for guests who don't know. But Tim, you've been here 7 times.
This
or 8
this
times.
this is old hat at this point
This
for me.
old hat, buddy. So what's your Home Alone of it all for Zardos?
Well, when you think about the trailer for Home Alone, where like they show him putting out the plans, and that's to entice the audience in, you think about the trailer for Zardos, and it just shows you throughout the movie out of context, because there's no way this is spoiling the plot for you. And so for me, the Home Alone of it all, it's essentially right after Arthur Frayne tells you there is no Zardoz God. I'm Zardoz, and I'm manipulating all this. And here we go. From that point onward is the movie Zardoz. And I can't even really picture this as a 3-act story in a conventional movie storytelling sense. Like, I'm sure it's there, but like it's almost invisible with the information that is thrown upon you, and it's very consistent. And for like an hour 45-minute movie made in 1974, it feels both very long but not at the same time, because by the time you realize you're at that point at the end of the movie and you look back at all that's happened, like, oh my gosh, like a lot has happened, and yet it's all been on this little estate for the most part. So yeah, the Home Alone of it all is just right from after that little introduction is done, buckle up, because the rest of the movie is going to be consistently this journey. And it kind of follows that sense of a quest that you hear Boorman talk about in that Arthurian quest. That like this is his journey into the vortex. Here we go. So that's my Home Alone of it all.
I think that's our final thought, Steve.
What? Oh, sorry, you're right. I forgot.
Steve, what's your Home Alone of it all?
I mean, Home Alone of it all is always just a final thought as well. We always just like rebuckle up on our fucking final thoughts during Home Alone of it all. So why don't we just make this our final thoughts? I don't know, but so my final thoughts. I mean, Home Alone of it all is the exact same thing that you just said. So now I'm like, what is mine? What is my second option? Because like, you're right. Everything you said is right. I think that my second option for the Home Alone of it all is probably the boner theory course that she gives, where she's like, all right, everyone sit down. I know that we haven't been able to talk about this much or ever because we've denied this information to most of you, but I need you to understand that an erection is desirable. And everyone goes, ooh, ew, what? And she's like, I know. But this beast in front of us now has the ability to have an erection. That's when the movie starts to get more interesting for me. Where I'm like, okay, there's more to this than just he's like why am I in here? And everyone's like, we have to study him. And she's like, this guy is a dick and we can't get dicks around here very often, not from these fucking twinks. And the twinks are like, oh, what do you mean? So yeah, that's my Home Alone of it all. The boner, especially when it like goes from like a flaccid dick drawing to like a like a Disney, like somebody from Disney drew that for sure.
It does look like something from the Electric Company back in the day. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, boner.
Where they're like, breathe.
Boner alert.
Yeah. The Electric Company said, balls, testicles. Honk, honk. Look at that
Honk,
dick
honk.
go. Okay, sorry.
That's your Home Alone.
All over the place. So early on in this movie, my Home Alone of it all was like we have 7 days to fucking. I thought it was going to be like 7 days elapse. I thought that was going to be the Home Alone of it all. So I had an early on.
It's gonna be like the Mask of Majora, where it's like,
Yeah. But my Home Alone of it all was more so the fact that this movie doesn't really have a Home Alone of it all. I think it's one of those rare movies because honestly, this movie has so many parts that like each new idea that's introduced is sort of a new Home Alone of it all segment. So a lot of times I talked about the trailer moment or moments could also be considered the Home Alone of it all, but I've never seen a trailer for this. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's, maybe we watch the trailer and glean from that, but I thought maybe him going through the vortex would be the Home Alone of it
The
all. but I
trailer
don't
is
know.
definitely just
Zordos.
and then and like a bunch of weird shit. Like that's.
But my Home Alone of it all is that there's no Home Alone of it all, and it's a bunch of different parts that all have sort of the same attraction.
All right. I
You
mean,
want to play?
I'm surprised that you guys didn't go for boner sequence like I did, but
It's a part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
now that's what I call the body of the episode. Am I right?
That's my favorite thing that we've ever done in this show. Why don't we play a game?
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
What's up, everybody? My name is Zed Zardos Montgomery, and I'd like to turn it over to my co-host, Steven Zardos Montgomery. We're brothers. To tell you the rules.
Hello, my name is Steven Zardos Montgomery, and I'm here to tell you the rules of this game. Guess the MPAA. So, what you need to do is guess a number between 0 and 999. 0999. It could be 555. It could be 444. It could be 777. It could be 901. It could be 102. It could be whatever you want it to be, Tim. You just need to guess the right number.
Now, let me add some additional context. The MPAA, the certificate number, is a number that's given to each and every movie that's rated by the MPAA when they slap on a rating, like rated R, rated PG-13, rated NC-17. And there are a couple caveats. First of all, I'm going to give you the first two digits, which are irrelevant because it is a 5-digit number after all. Which, Tim, you've played this game a multitude of times at this point. You know that. But now, if you guys come to a stalemate, I'm going to introduce a new thing that we introduced last week and we'll be introducing from here on out. You'll have to guess what the gross earnings were for this film, and you'll get an additional guess. We'll get to that when we get to it.
I think the gross earnings were Sean Connery fondling breasts the entire time. Am I right? Oh, whoa!
Hey.
May I squeeze your breast? A quick honk honk
But let's, the guest always goes first. The first two digits this week are 2, 3. Tim, what's your first guess?
I've been practicing numbers all day. Okay. 774.
And I will tell you if it's higher or lower, and it is lower. Steve.
500.
Tim, higher.
602.
Steve, higher.
707.
Tim, your final guess. It's lower.
699.
Steve, your final guess is lower.
666.
Now, the answer is higher than that. I will actually now ask.
That's so
Yep.
close.
I will actually ask you both for an estimation. Price is Right rules. Highest without going over will allow you to have one final guess. Tim, what is the box office gross for this film?
Has to be worth more than a carton of eggs, that's for sure. Let's say 6 million.
Steve, your guess?
Is it higher or lower? Or do I just guess?
You just guessed.
2 million.
Well, unfortunately, Unfortunately, no, that's
That noise actually hurts.
unfortunately neither of you get an additional guess because the budget for this film was 1.57 million. The box office gross was 1.8 million.
Oof.
And the MPAA rating for this week is 23,672.
Oh, we were actually quite close. That's cool. I'll take that as a win personally.
The MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
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 We had so many people tune in right at the end there.
They know when the game's going to come. They know it.
It's true.
Yeah, maybe Tim's right. Maybe people love the MPAA game.
It is the
think they
world's
do.
best game.
It is the world's greatest game. Thank you guys for playing. I love the fact that the MPAA rating was clear on the screen in the first 1 minute of this movie, seconds before they said the name of the movie. But what I will ask you for now is your final thoughts.
It's time for our final thoughts.
Tim, just like everything else on the show, the guest always goes first. So tell us about your final thoughts for the film Zardoz, starring Sean Connery.
Well, first, I'll say thank you both very, very much for having me on again. This is actually like a lot of fun to do. It's a lot of fun to watch when I'm not on anyway. And the theme months this year have actually been super, super fun to watch. So thank you for having me on. It really means a lot. I really enjoy doing this. And thank you both for indulging this idea again for this movie suggestion. And I'm happy that it did turn out into a fully fledged theme month where you actually explored a lot of other interesting movies that I wouldn't immediately assume to check out at first. So things like Flash Gordon, Rollerball, and Barbarella. It's interesting to actually have all these kind of compared in that same ecosystem with Zardoz. So thank you for indulging on that. And I'm actually happy that it was not a slog. That was one thing I was kind of worried about coming into this. It was just like, this movie can be a lot and it's not for everybody. So both of you were very open-minded into taking it on. I really, really appreciate that too. So thank you very much for all of that. My final thoughts for this movie, I wouldn't ever even qualify it as good or bad, but it's an experience. And I wouldn't call it required viewing for everybody. I would say this for when you kind of register someone's exploring, when they say I want to check out something a little different. This is something that you suggest along that path, that this is something to check out to introduce new ideas and people taking chances in filmmaking, people that are trying to tell something a little different, especially given that this was in the 70s. And that makes it stand out. And it kind of arose under stressful circumstances, as you mentioned at the beginning, Steve, with the complications with the IRA at the time, making things a little difficult for them. The casting issues where they had Burt Reynolds in mind at first, and then it became Sean Connery. So the fact that this even exists is kind of a triumph unto itself. And I do know that it has mixed reviews from all sorts of different people, and I kind of stage away from that and say this is something a little different. And I don't mean to say that in a snooty, heady sense, but just that this is fair to let it be its own beast and its own brutal, and let it happen. And so,
is it brutal like a brood of brutal humans?
A brutal, oodles and oodles of brutals. But no, yeah. Once again, thank you both very much. And if I were to give this a rating in the context of Zardoz, I would give it a two-sided head on one exterminator. There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim.
Oh, I forgot about clapping.
And thank you for having Sammy on the show tonight.
Hopefully Sammy can come and just be a guest one time.
Yeah.
Steve, your
And
final
they're
thoughts. Meow.
My final thoughts on Zardoz are this is a difficult movie to get through, for sure, especially if you don't know what you're getting into. And if you don't want to give it a chance, then you're not gonna get through it. But you should give it a chance, because once you get through it once, you'll be kind of like blown away by how weird and strange it is. And then if you watch it a second time, you're going to understand actually how good it is, which is, I think, where you should be. And I say that mostly as like a in between old and young person, where like, I like old movies, but I like new movies, but this is a movie that is old that you need to have patience with. Or else you're not going to get it and you're not going to really care for it. But if you do take the time to try and care for it, you'll understand that it's a pretty impactful and strangely good movie. We kind of like goofed a lot tonight, which I appreciate because you guys are funny guys, and I like laughing with you, but like we did goof a little bit more than I would have liked to have taken it seriously. But like, at the end of the conversation, which we're at, I still think we got through those sort of interesting parts as much as we could. And there's a lot to be talked about for Zardoz. And I'm really glad that I understand it now, because if it lived in my mind as just a reference forever, I think that I would understand a lot of things that I think I understand a lot less. So, give it a chance. Give it a chance, guys. And my rating, I would give it the rating of somebody asking about a starship, something designed to be a starship, going to the stars, and then saying, well, did you go? And then somebody else saying, well, we did, but it was a dead end as well. That's my rating.
Good reference.
Chucky, you said you were gonna laugh at that. I told him not to laugh if I said that. Oh my god, what a dick.
Don't fuck with the Chuck. Can you guys hear me? Chucky's always messing me up.
Yeah.
What's ironic is I did actually have my final thoughts written on this.
Oh, you ripped it up? You ripped up your final thoughts?
I ripped up too fast. Which is my final thoughts for just kidding.
Okay, Chucky, you're allowed to laugh at that. Oh god, he won't stop.
Jesus. This was better than I expected based on only knowing about the costume.
That's true.
I think I thought it was going to be sillier, but it was pretty hard sci-fi and had a lot of serious themes. Great way to cap the month. Just to go a little bit beyond that, there was a lot to talk about, and I'm glad that we took our time. This is one of our longer episodes, of course. We did start a little bit late, but then I got 3:47 on the live clock right now. So this might be our longest episode ever, but this was one where I just wanted to talk about it till we talked about everything. And I think there was some stuff still left on the table, and that's fine. I look forward to seeing how people react to this episode as well, because I had a lot of fun talking about it. I give this movie a 3.4 out of 5, so I lied in the beginning. But I also give this living a whole lifetime in a cave, because it had some seriously boring parts. And that is essentially...
The Undertaker is rude.
I love it. The Undertaker is rude. But before we get out of here, we do have to do our plugs, and I'm glad that we do because Steve was in the kitchen once again cooking up something brutal. Let's hear it.
All right, let me just plug this in right here and.
I think he died.
He died at the end.
That was
died.
fantastic.
That was so good.
Jason said, "Do one for a plug," and I was like, "I don't know." Like, he gets a little shocked to death.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay.
Tim, do you have anything to plug? And if you don't have anything to plug, do you have a message for the world?
Be kind when you can, and it's wild out there. But think of the good things and think of the good folks. And if it ever gets rough, you find those people and you talk to them and see how they're doing and find the good things to share with them. And be well as best as you can.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show. You're welcome back whenever you want, of course. You're one of our favorite guests in the Rogues Gallery of Hey, Did You See This One?
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Steve, what do you have cooking up in addition to two of the best stings that we've had thus far?
Well, I am in a game called Dominica. I'm in a TV show that has to do with rock people that are coming out. That's coming out soon. When I have the permission to give the name of the show, I will. But it's going to be great.
Sounds really cool.
The Darth Theorist, obviously, keep checking that out. We love it. We're growing every week, and I've got a lot of other kind of like irons in the fire. Is that the saying? Tim, you know sayings.
That's the exact saying.
They're red hot. They're burning.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep looking for me on YouTube, and if you need anything done, just hit me up, man. I'm good. I'm a good narrative voice. I know my voice is a little pooched right now, but it's because I was doing voices like Canadian submarines are more scary than you think. Like all day. I've been doing that all day.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve.
Oh, thanks, you guys. You didn't have to. No, you don't have to. But hold on. Let me just put my finger in.
Let me just plug this in right here and.
Is that the boner alert is for when you plug it in there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny you say that because the first thing I want to plug this week, of course, is
Boner alert.
Okay, that's my favorite. I just want to tell everybody about the things that I do. I am known as the voice of Superkicked professional wrestling here in Toronto. Our show that just passed is called Superkick Paradise. In October, we are going into Zombie Month. To just set up that, I want to tell you guys about what we have coming up on this show. The Grimoire Familiar Killers. The Grimoire is going to be opened once again to unleash hell and demons and ghosts and spooky men that are basically Bugs Bunny or a tiny little freak who's got red hair. Who knows what that means? During all of that, though, I want to let everybody know that.
Oh,
Conky.
He heard you talking about him.
He always knows. I want to tell everybody that I know listening that we are going to be doing a special tournament for November. We're going to be trapped in a cage with Nicolas Cage. And we're doing Nicolas Cage month. Basically move over September, and here comes Trapped in a Cage. But we're going to do like a tournament thing. Me and Steve are going to put together a tournament. We're going to put it up on social media. I'm going to have polls.
The one poster that I have so far?
Yeah.
This is the one poster that we put up.
It's the one thing that I did, but we may as well show it just so people can get sort of a sneak peek at what it's going to look like. A lot of people comment on the the stuff that we do with the posters. I'm hoping that I can get people to vote on the movies that we do through October to set up Trapped in a Cage. It's going to look like this. Neither of these movies are necessarily going to be the final four that we get to, because this is like one bracket. They're all going to sort of go down into a final four situation, and those are going to be the movies that we do. And I'm really excited to see what four nightmares social media ends up having us do. Which leads me to my next thing. Whoa.
This.
Whoa, what was that? This show, Hey Did You See This One? It's a show that we do live every week on Twitch and YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern each and every week. Like I said, our video on demands go up the following day on Friday. No set time. It's usually around lunchtime when they're streamed again for you. And we've had some doozies this month. We had some really good things come up, and we have some great things coming up going forward. And that's the end of the show. So I'll, of course, do the ending because I've manufactured it this way. But Tim, there's one question you have to ask yourself, and that you have to ask each and every person that's listening to the show.
Speaks to you.
Hold on. Zardoz is speaking to you.
Well, Zardoz has demanded, so I must ask it. Hey, did you see this one?
Say something funny.
Excuse me. I heard that I'm a ghost. I'm a horrible wife-beating ghost. And I heard that you were going to make a whole month about me, and you decided not to do that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, Sean.
Why?
Well, we had to make sure that we
decide to do September.
We had to make sure that we weren't, platforming a wife beater, as you said yourself.
I only beat one of my wives.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, Did You See This One? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mario Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.